Time to celebrate. Let's celebrate tonight. Let's do it. All right. This night belongs to not me. It belongs to you. So 25,000 thank yous go out from me to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on this night of celebration here at the Voice of College Football. It's been a long 11 years on YouTube. And it just gets better by the day. So thank you so much for joining us on our Saturday night 25K celebration. Great to see all of you. Of course, I'm going to address all your comments, questions, and debate topics. This is no different than any other show, except we'll do a little celebration, and we've got a few little balloons in the background. That's pretty much it. And maybe I look slightly better, or we'll say different than I typically do. So welcome in. And again, here's the big celebration for 25K. Thank you so much for that. And it's a big night as well in regards to, for the first time here at the Voice of College Football, we'll have some giveaways. And so stay tuned for that. We'll be talking about how you can take part in the Voice of College Football and represent your favorite team. And again, more of that to come. Okay, the call-in number tonight is 860-499-3332. My apologies on any confusion out there for the old-timers who are going to be calling the old number. But George, you should be proud of me. Hopefully George is watching right now and listening, because he's going to be mighty proud of me, because we are locked in on the new call-in system tonight. I'm operating it by myself for the very first time. And that's why I might be a couple minutes late here, because I just wanted to make sure it was all good. And I'm getting a call coming in right now. Actually, two coming in. Here we go. Our first call into the call-in system here at Mark Rogers TV, the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? I got you.
Mark,
Who's on the line?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear the beep or anything. I didn't know, but it's Ballard. How you doing tonight, man?
Ballard. I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Yes, sir. I'm doing great. Congratulations to you and everyone else at the Voice of College Football on 25K. And I was watching your stream. You're all dressed up and everything. Everything looks pretty nice, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, feeling good. How are you doing tonight? Thank you for your contribution. You have a hand in this.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing just great, man. Looks like we're probably going to get some spring games this off season. I mean, we figured out how to handle a actual football season. I think we can handle the spring and everything, even with the virus going around. We're getting back to the actual off season of football. Still plenty of months left before all the actual games and action kick off. But, I'm excited for it, man.
I am excited as well. And I come across this each and every spring where I get geared up to watch spring football games. Mm-hmm. We miss football for so long, and especially college football for so long, that once the spring practices conclude and we start to see on the various networks that the spring games are coming and going to be televised, I start to get geared up. And then what happens is I actually turn on a spring game, and it takes about 3 plays for me to realize it's a spring game. And so I become less enthusiastic about it after that. But that's me.
Yeah, I wanted to call in, assuming that we do have a actual normal season, not going to get into the whole fans in the stands thing, but if we have a normal season in the sense like we keep the schedules as they are and don't do this whole conference only thing, because that was just one of those, let's just find a way to where, we're just now dealing with this pandemic and everything for the first time in football history. We got something like this, at least for the first time in a long time, kind of thing. And, we figured out how to do it, right? And we saw some non-conference games, obviously, in both seasons. But let's assume we keep the schedules as they are. let's just, going forward with what I want to say here. Week 1, or maybe it's like week 2, I don't know. But we got a home and home starting this year with Auburn and Penn State. I'm going to keep my eye on that. I think it's in Happy Valley this year. Who do you think needs that win more this year? And how much of an impact do you think it would have on the playoff race next season?
I think it's going to have minimal impact on the playoff race. And if it does have playoff implications, I think it's going to be on the Big Ten side for Penn State. I think they've got a better chance of competing because they've got one team to take down in their division. And I think Auburn's stacked up behind 3 at least. I do think that Brian Harsin was a decent hire. I do think that this is much more important for Auburn than it is for Penn State. I just think that Brian Harsin has a bit of ground to make up, that he's got to prove that he belongs, that he's the guy. James Franklin has been there at Penn State since 2014. 2014 would have been his first year. So he's been there for 7 years. He's won. I think not that it's not a big game for James Franklin. He has to bounce back from a 5-loss season, but I'm going with more important for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree, and especially with stuff that I've heard. Auburn, Gus Malzahn was at first a great hire. Obviously, he was the offensive coordinator under Chizik when they won the title in 2010, and then a couple years after. And the problem with Malzahn was inconsistency and trying to beat the bigger teams. He had only 1 year where he made a championship, which was a heck of a season in 2013. But after that, it just looked like decline, except for some good wins over Bama or Georgia here or there. And now a couple years ago, they lost guys like Marlon Davidson and Derek Brown, great players that they just keep losing to the draft and failing to. And I always hate to I never want to throw any college player under the bus and say that they suck or whatever, but obviously there's players that are just better than others, and they have recruited guys that are good, but not good enough to, get the program where they want it to be. And I just, I think that it's just going to be interesting. I think, it's too early to tell really with these teams, but I'm hearing a lot of people say that Auburn's probably not going to be that good next year. As far as Penn State goes, they'll be okay. But then again, now COVID and everything aside, we thought, I was at least one of the few people that thought Penn State might win the Big Ten last year. Then COVID hit, they have opt-outs and just all kinds of chaos with schedules. And, they went 5-5, something like that. I guess they played 8 games. It doesn't matter, but it's just going to be an interesting matchup, I think, especially since it's early on. And I think if anyone might need that win more, I'd probably say Auburn probably needs it just for some momentum throughout the season, because they're going to have a tough year in general, I think.
Yeah, Auburn could have lost 2 more games last year. They were fortunate to beat Ole Miss, and they were basically given a gift at the end of the game against Arkansas. So a 6-5 season could have been a 3-6 season. Penn State rebounded well from 5 consecutive losses, and even though everyone was chasing down James Franklin and what a horrible job he was doing, there were a lot of circumstances involving Penn State's rough start, and they lost the best defensive player in the conference before the season started. He opted out. Micah Parsons, Journey Brown was their best running back, who was just coming off 200 yards rushing in the Cotton Bowl. He unfortunately had to retire from football, and that happened a week before the season started. I don't give a lot of relevance to what Penn State did last year. And if anything, I thought James Franklin did a nice job of keeping them together and helping them to compete and play with some motivation the last 4 games after starting 0-5.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I got one more thing based on Alabama before you let me go here. And, they just signed a really, really stacked class, and they're saying it's probably the best in modern history. And I just, these guys will be young and everything. But what do you think that says about, like, it's just, we talk so much about how teams are right there, so close to getting Alabama, but then Nick Saban goes undefeated last year in a season of COVID and all that. Then they sign a really huge recruiting class. And yeah, give credit to teams like Kirby Smart and Georgia and Dabo and Clemson. But I mean, it's like anytime we say the dynasty's falling apart or someone's going to slip up and get Alabama, it's like they're one step ahead. And obviously that's just part of who Nick Saban is. But I mean, I think, man, it's going to be a while before y'all can get rid of Alabama. I mean, do you see any, not that they're just going to, I mean, they'll keep winning titles, but it's not going to be consecutive years or anything. But I mean, what do you think that says about Nick Saban right now? I mean, we know he's great already, but if he keeps going like he is right now, I mean, what do you think?
I think that Alabama's been the gold standard in college football since 2009, and I have never seen anything that would change that. The anticipation that anybody is going to win a championship every year is ridiculous. So when they've had a gap for 2 years of not winning a championship, and no one could ever find any kind of videotape of me, any digital video online here of me outlining any kind of demise with Alabama football. So that has not come from me. I have never stated anything close to that. So I don't know what else can be said about what Alabama is doing and what Nick Saban is doing. He has built the best program in college football, possibly the best one in history. And they just continue to grind away and get the job done. And even with the loss of, everybody loses personnel, but he loses more coaching staff than any of the elite teams. Yeah. And you had mentioned that Auburn's recruiting wasn't as good as it should be. I think Auburn's recruited well under Gus Malzahn. It's usually he's been somewhere in that 5 to 12 range in the nation in recruiting. And that's been, Alabama can't be the team that the recruiting rankings are measured against. Georgia's been right there with Alabama. They have to do it on the field. There's really nothing I can state that hasn't been stated about Alabama and Nick Saban's excellence. The one thing I will say, though, is in the matchups with Georgia, I believe that Georgia's stepped on the field now 3 times with Alabama, especially those first 2 times in the 2017 championship game and the 2018 SEC championship game with just as good a team. But I think what the result of that game basically showed what is my thought about how a team reflects its coach. And Alabama's teams play with poise. They play with determination. They play in the clutch. They play with great fundamentals. They play with great focus. They're laser focused, just like their head coach. So Nick Saban has shown the way, and his teams fall right in step with his approach. And so that's been sometimes in the big games the difference.
You know what Saban likes to call that, Mark, is the process.
Yes, he does.
I mean, yep. But anyway, I'll get off here. I appreciate you taking my call, and hope you have a great day, and roll tide.
Thanks, Ballard. Appreciate it. All right, let's keep rolling with the calls here. We've got David Greenshield on the line. David, how you doing today?
Well, How you doing? Where'd you take that sport coat out of, Mark Rogers?
I dusted this off. The last time I probably wore this, this is starting to make me feel so. If nobody's noticed, for the past few weeks with this new call-in system and with the new audio board, I've been wearing an earpiece, which I hate, but I was accustomed to doing that for about 11 years, every, 6 and 10 p.m. I was accustomed to that, and I got away from that for a long, long time. And then the other thing was wearing a shirt and tie and a suit every day. I used to be accustomed to that for 10 or 11 years, and it feels kind of strange. I think the last time I put this jacket on was for the American Conference Media Days, football media days, about 2 to 3 years ago.
There you go. I was thinking that maybe you would have had also a sign and maybe a cake or something, Mark. No sign or cake for the 25,000 subscribers.
I got a cake for 10,000. Got a cake for 10,000 for that show, and I got to tell you that even though I saw it coming a couple days ago, it really didn't hit me that I would do anything until a couple hours ago. So,
okay. Well, well, on to the point why I called, which is college football. First of all, I have to say, in watching some of your videos, I got a chance to catch the interview that you had with Lon Phillips. Is it Lon Phillips Sullivan?
Yes, sir.
LSU? Yeah. Boy, I found that to be really interesting stuff. Didn't you, Mark?
I did as well.
I mean, who knew? I mean, Les Miles, we always talked about maybe some of his, bad calls. I think you said at one time you made videos about some of his bad in-game decisions as a head coach. Who would have thought that he was running this type of program? I mean, would you even have fathomed something like this?
Yes. And the reason I say that is not because I'm a smart guy, not because I'm a smart guy who can discern better than anyone else. But do you recall the lengthy investigative article that was released by Sports Illustrated probably 7 or 8 years ago about Les Miles' program at Oklahoma State? That was eye-opening.
I do not. I just want to say I do not. No.
It was basically reading in a similar manner as to what Alon was talking about the other night at LSU.
I find it interesting, and I'm from an Ohio State fan. And I mentioned this to you before. We took a lot of stuff over memorabilia for tattoos, and you run across a story like this. And Mark, you covered the Southeastern Conference in your days of covering Mississippi State and Jackie Sherrill, right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, and I don't remember your answer about this, but I know that I've asked you this question before, and I'm going to ask you again because I need to refresh my own memory here, which is it your view that a lot of the major programs are doing this stuff, and it's just a matter of who gets caught doing this kind of stuff? Maybe not at the level of what Les Miles was doing, but stuff that let's say that's not exactly above board, if you know what I mean. And I think you do.
I do. I think there's a large percentage of coaches out there, and understand, David, when I answer this question, I am speculating, and I don't like doing that, but it's a reasonable question that you ask because this is the world in which we live in, and there's evidence all over the place, and there are allegations, and there are confirmation of those allegations, as we've seen at a number of stops. So I will say this. I think there's a fairly large portion of the college football landscape where there are programs being run by coaches who, in a perfect world, would just want to recruit and sign football players, coach the football players, have everybody do what they need to do to remain eligible, go to class, get their grades, that they have the intent of doing the right thing. But
I agree.
They are there to win football games, and they do understand how they're going to keep their job. They're going to keep their job by going to bowl games and beating their rival and fill in the blank, rather than going 3-9 and running a squeaky clean program that has the best grade point average in the conference. And so they understand what's expected of them and why they're being paid $5 million per year. Therefore, when things go wrong and when there are players out there committing crimes or just running amok, even if it's not to the criminal level, they tend to turn a deaf ear and a blind eye and look the other way, and would rather all that go away and just don't want it to happen. It would rather, they don't perpetuate it. They don't want it. They don't want to create an environment or culture that accepts it.
Right.
But when push comes to shove, they allow it.
See, here's the thing, Mark. I mean, and we've talked about, the 30 for 30 on the SMU program. Do you remember back when, speaking of another Oklahoma program, you remember when Bosworth came out with the book and talked about what Barry Switzer was doing at Oklahoma? And remember, they got hit with sanctions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the Switzer years. I mean, from when I first started watching college football, which was probably somewhere in the right around the mid 80s. I know you started before I did. You're a little bit older, just a tad bit older than me. But it seems like it's just been a part of the sport, for a longer period of time. And when stuff like this comes out, although this type of stuff and listening to what you talked about with Lon is really to an extreme. I'm thinking of stuff like, recruiting violations and things like that. I guess, it doesn't surprise me anymore, because I kind of have that feeling that there are programs out there, because you're right, Mark, it's who can get the best athletes. Recruiting is everything. How am I going to get that 5-star to my school to help me get to a bowl game, or to help me win games and win a conference championship so I can keep my job? So let's not make a mistake about it, Mark. I mean, the fact that there might be some underhanded things to help you get those top players to come to your school, I'm not naive to that fact that might be happening, and that probably is happening. I guess. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, David.
I guess I wanted to kind of close too with just I don't know what Lon's final thoughts here, or what your final thoughts are on the LSU situation. By the way, Les Miles, is he just coaching on borrowed time? It's just a matter of time before that axe falls on him in Kansas, you think? If you were a betting man?
He's not winning at Kansas. They don't have anything to protect in regards to a winning brand right now or a winning team. Therefore, I don't see where they have much incentive to look to be a program that's going to show themselves to put up with this. To enable this and hire and employ a coach that has this type of track record.
Okay.
I don't see any benefit to keeping Les Miles.
Okay.
If I'm Kansas.
Second part, Mark. Okay. Just real quick, I want to get to the second part. Bottom line, I know what Lon Phillips Sullivan's opinion, ramifications for LSU.
Oh, wow. So, to quote one of my favorite YouTubers, there's levels to this, and then he throws in a 4-letter word after that. Because you have the typical transgressions that deal with winning football, committing violations against the NCAA, which are rules. It's not law. It's wrong. It's unethical. It's immoral to some degree, but it's not. It's wrong because it's been set up as a rule. Do not fix a player's grades to keep him eligible. Do not pay him money to play football. He's an amateur. Those sorts of things are the typical run of the mill, and they're wrong, and they're violations and should be met with a stiff discipline. But here we're talking about, in addition to some of that, most of it is just allowing players to act like animals. And when they should be brought to justice, covering up for them and allowing and enabling them to act like that. So it's just inappropriate, and that's a very kind word, behavior. So it's just a different category. It's a criminal matter.
Right.
Most of it.
Does it? I mean, it sounded like. Don't tell me if I got this wrong. That Eddie O, Coach Ogeron here, might have just turned a blind eye to this and let it go. Is that too strong a statement, or is that an accurate statement?
So I made a statement at one point in which Lon was doing a great job of running through the report and the various incidents. And I said, well, it sounds like it is pretty much shown that Les Miles not only is that guy that will allow it, he perpetuates it to, he somehow feels as though it's either makes him popular as a head coach or that's what's necessary to bring the best athletes. But he perpetuates this type of behavior, not only allows it, but he creates an environment in which you come to Oklahoma State, you come to LSU, and you're going to be treated like this. You're going to be able to do whatever you want. We're going to provide hostesses for you. We're going to do all these things for you. Like, he initiates it.
Right.
And that seems to go to another level. Maybe the likes of Rick Pitino at Louisville to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad comparison.
And so maybe Ed Ogeron stepped into a situation in which he was not aware that he would have to deal with these kind of issues and was just not strong enough or secure enough, didn't have enough equity in wins and losses, that he just got caught in a bad situation and didn't do the right thing in calling players out and just kind of let it ride. That's the appearance of it.
Well, I mean, it's just going to be bottom line, interesting to see how the NCAA moves forward on this. And if there are, losses of scholarship or bowl bans or anything along those lines, because this stuff, from just watching your interview with him, seems really out of bounds. And, it'll be interesting to see, if it comes out in more detail what Coach O's role in this is, because if he did have a role in it, if he did turn a blind eye, I would think that they would, he could be in trouble and they could be looking at some penalties here. I wouldn't be surprised, would you, if that ended up being the case? Oh,
absolutely. And what I like seeing that is finally becoming somewhat standard in response to these situations is that there is going to be collateral damage. Unfortunately, there are going to be many innocent people, whether they're players, whether they work in the athletic office, the football program, that are going to be part of the penalties that had nothing to do with it. But I think finally, that this Kansas action and what they are currently doing in their investigation seems to be something that finally is being done in response to going out to the people, the culprits, who are typically gone. By the time this comes to light, we see this repeatedly. Most of these people are at other institutions, and in the past, they've had their reputation soiled, but they haven't been formally penalized. And maybe we're finally getting to that point where that's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe finally. Well, I've got my reservations at Outback. I love the sports coat. And here's to another 25,000 subscribers to Mark Rogers.
Well, thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. Have a great meal tonight, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care of yourself now. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's catch up with Hunter from Alabama, who's been waiting patiently, so we appreciate that. Hunter, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well. What's going on?
Good. Congratulations on 25,000 subscribers.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I got a question. Do you think that Mike Norvell will be the guy to eventually bring Florida State back to where Jimbo had it?
I am starting to have my opinion change to a certain extent. I'm trying not to overreact to some of the commitments he's received over the last 2 or 3 weeks, which have been very impressive. It's almost difficult to imagine that a football program that's been as bad as they have been over the last few seasons would be able to get a couple 5-star recruits come their way. Now, of course, they have to hold on to the commitment, and they need a whole bunch more of them. I believe Mike Norvell showed at Memphis that he's a capable football coach, but there's a difference between being a capable football coach that takes over a solid program and just keeps it running and is capable to maintain it. And it's a whole other deal to step into a situation that's been dysfunctional for 4 to 5 to 6 years and turn it around and clean it up. They're going to have to continue to give him time. They're already losing players in a good way in terms of him setting some standards, setting some boundaries, both in terms of football standards, football expectations of accountability, of showing up on time, working out hard, being accountable, and then also off the field. And it's weeded out some of the bad element in the program, and he's paying the price for it on the field. But if they would just give him time, I think he's going to be able to sort through that. And he's starting to turn the corner, but they better, meaning the administration, be prepared for a rough looking record this year. They could be better, and all the signs could be pointing toward progress, but they could go 5-7 this year.
Yeah, you're right. As you know, I'm a huge Alabama fan. But I'd have to say that Florida State's my second favorite team if I had to pick one. So it's kind of disheartening to me to see them go from where Jimbo had them to where they're at now. And I thought when they made the Willie Taggart hire, I thought that was a horrible idea. I thought there was somebody better that they could have hired. And I think that's what got them off track as far as another coach, because he took that program to me and just wanted the players to like him more than he wanted to win football games. It seemed to me, in the way that he recruited and in some of the showmanship, if you put it that way. So if they would have started out like a guy like Norvell, I think they'd be a lot further along in being one of the top tier teams again than what they are today.
So to Willie Taggart's defense, and I certainly have blasted him in a number of ways for some things that you just mentioned. Plus, I just thought it was unbelievable. I'll take 2018 and 19. Those were the 2 seasons he was there. 2018 for the full season. I could not believe that there was a team in the Power 5 at Florida State's level with that much talent that in game 10, game 11 was still not able to line up properly on offense. The lack of discipline, the lack of focus, the lack of preparation, the lack of in-game adjustments, and as you state, he did seem a bit soft. He certainly was patting a lot of kids on the rear end rather than maybe, giving them a firm hand around the shoulder close to the neck to correct some things. So he did, though. However, that program was already in a bad way when he took it over. Even though Jimbo's a great coach, he brought in a lot of talent. They were still recruiting at a high level when Willie Taggart. That dysfunction had already started. Jimbo had already let some things slide, and there was a bad energy and vibe and dysfunction in that program already when Willie got there.
Yes, I would agree with what you just said there. Yeah, to me, it was just the fact that Florida State has so much talent on that team. I mean, just like you said, not being able to line up correctly. You know, the small things, the attention to detail was just not there whatsoever. And it's just sad to see a program go from being as good as they were to that bad that quickly. And you know, it's just one of those things because Florida State should be, besides Clemson, they should be the top team every year in that conference. And they just haven't been. So
if you're just going to look, Hunter, at recruiting access, they should be better than Clemson. Clemson's in the good place in terms of recruiting, in terms of a footprint, but Florida State's in a much better place locally to recruit in state. Clemson's got to go outside South Carolina. South Carolina's not a great football playing state.
There's tons of talent in Tallahassee.
Exactly.
I mean, Alabama picks up two or three guys every year.
Sure.
I mean, Alabama got Terrion Arnold this year, who's right out of Florida State's backyard, literally right there in Tallahassee.
Yeah, that's my point.
I believe, was it Marlon Humphreys? I believe was from Tallahassee. One of those guys that were big secondary player for Alabama a few years ago was from Tallahassee. So yeah, you're right. They're in Florida. They should be able to recruit better than Clemson as far as that goes. But let me put something else right quick. Going into the season, these teams that underperformed this year due to the COVID situation this past year, how do you think that administrators and boosters what should they expect coming back this year? Do you think it's going to be a little bit harder because, during this recruiting cycle last year, coaches weren't able to get out on the road and to see kids in person very much. So what would your expectation be if you were an administrator or a booster at some of these schools that, just didn't have a good last year, but we know that they're talent-wise, they should be, better this year.
So, Hunter, I'll connect what you're asking to our discussion about Mike Norvell. I'll use him as an example. His job was made doubly tough by not just stepping into a program that was dysfunctional, but when you're a first-year head coach, you're taking over typically a bad football team. That's why you're the head coach. That's why you're the new head coach. 9 times out of 10, you're taking over a bad football team. That's why you're the new head coach. In this particular year, he had to step in, and there were others across the country, but he had to step in, using him as an example. And when you step into, again, a new program, you're trying to establish a process, a structure, an environment. You're trying to build relationships. You have a brand new coaching staff. All those coaching staff members are trying to build relationships with those players on their units, the linebacker coach to the linebackers, etc. You're trying to do all that. You're usually trying to implement a new offense, a new defense, trying to do all those things. And he and others had no spring practice, and then had priority number one put on them from June on, when the players started to trickle onto campus, was health guidelines and CDC guidelines and testing every day. And that had to take up, I don't know, a third of their time away from football. Was, okay, make sure you're sanitary and you're washing your hands, you're getting tested, and probably, I'm guessing, a third of their time was taken away from football and was focused on the pandemic guidelines. And so if you're a first-year head coach, you had an even more difficult challenge to build a football program, but because he couldn't build relationships, he had to Zoom call everybody. And you can do that to a certain extent, but it's not like being in the same space as a kid and being able to shake his hand and talk to him and build a rapport. And he and others had to do that. And he probably had the most difficult job in the country because of the dysfunction of the program and how bad the team was, not in terms of talent, but how bad the team was in comparison to the expectations. He probably inherited, I'm going to say it, he did inherit the worst situation in college football compared to the expectations. So I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of lost track of what your question was, but it had more to do with coming up this season.
Yeah, well, coming up this season, Alabama just had to rely on this year, for example, just had to rely on the Bama factor of Alabama just being Nick Saban and being Alabama. So they were probably going to recruit very well regardless of the pandemic, just because they had that brand name.
Sure.
When you see a team like Michigan, who should be better than what they are, I'm starting to get a little bit. I think this is the year that he's going to have to do a good job at Michigan in order to stay there. So these teams, I just don't know how the season is going to play out. What we're going to see, because of the lack of all the things you just mentioned, along with coaches not being able to see kids in person to be able to recruit the way that they usually do. So I wonder if this is going to make a more interesting season as far as the non-conference schedule this year around the country, not just SEC or whatever. I'm interested to see how this is going to all play itself out throughout the year, and what kind of games we're going to see.
Yeah. So as this
like Alabama plays Miami.
Mm-hmm. So as this pandemic unfolded this past summer, there were a lot of people that speculated, okay, this is going to be a crazy college football season. And it was. We had a lot of cancellations. We had games that weren't supposed to be scheduled that were at the last minute, like Coastal Carolina and BYU. There was an interesting element to that to a certain extent, but it was a crazy season in terms of scheduling. But a lot of people speculated, and me included initially that, oh, wow, this is going to just be a wild card of a season, and who knows what's going to happen. But the more I thought about it, if you certainly check out the discussions we all had leading into this season, I was like, wait a minute. What programs are best prepared to deal with adversity? What programs are the smartest and have the best resources and the most money and the best facilities and can deal with it? They are the teams we all know at the top. So let's not expect this to be much different than it typically is, because those schools, those coaching staffs, their facilities, their resources are better than everybody else's. They're going to deal with this better than anyone else. And what did we wind up with? We wound up with Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame in the playoff, and Ohio State and Alabama in the national championship game. We wound up with a national championship game with the two biggest brands, the two teams that recruit the best, and they were in the national championship game.
Yeah, I just hope it's a better year in terms of us not having so many cancellations and things like that.
Well, I want to see non-conference games.
I don't. Yes. We've got to have that this year. I mean, it was fun for a year seeing, just the conference schedule. And it was kind of interesting, but I think college football in general, fans in general, want to see these non-conference games. We want to see these games. So I'm hopeful, and I'm looking forward to hopefully a great season for college football in general.
Absolutely, Hunter. Well, thank you so much for the call. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
With our new phone-in system here, I can see who's waiting, and I probably need to push through these calls a little bit quicker because I can see at least 3 people that are waiting. That cuts off there. There could be 17 people calling. but there's only going to be three that I see that are waiting, and we're jammed up here. So I will get to those calls in just a second. I want to let everyone know that we've got a giveaway today here. So you can get your favorite team mask free at our new website. So go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com should be easy to remember. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. And you can get your favorite team mask free. You do that by registering. So you go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. So maybe somebody can try that right now. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. You'll see at the top it says register for free. You just fill out your name, your email address. I get an email from you. I contact you. I give you a coupon code, and you get a free mask if you root for these teams. I guess I got to stipulate. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's basically everybody in the SEC. You're covered except South Carolina. Sorry, Gamecock fans. Everyone in the SEC is covered. Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Miami, Florida State, I know are included. Oklahoma and Texas, Oregon, Notre Dame. So we've got most of the major teams covered. So you can get your free face mask. And then in addition to that, you get 20% off your first purchase there at the store. So there's a ton of amazing items, and just about every team in college, I will say every team in college football, every team in the Power Five is covered. We've got items there for every team in the Power Five, definitely, plus some Group of Five as well. And so you get 20% off your first purchase, and register at voiceofcollegefootball.com to get a free face mask. So if you're a Texas A&M fan, you get a free Texas A&M face mask, and you can check them out and check out the fashion statement you'll be making right there. And again, when you get the coupon code, get your free face mask at voiceofcollegefootball.com, and you get 20% off your first purchase. Okay? The mask is free, 20% off your first purchase. And then you're going to be eligible for a $25 gift certificate. So everybody who gets a free face mask will also be eligible for a $25 gift certificate to this store. So check it out there, voiceofcollegefootball.com. All right, let's get to another call here. We've got Mr. Tito, who has been waiting patiently and gives me congratulations on $25,000. Mr. Tito, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, this is Mr. TW. How you doing?
Hey, TW. It says Tito on my screen. My apologies there. Mr. TW, thank you so much, sir, for the Super Chat contribution tonight. That is much appreciated.
Oh, no problem. My only bias against computer voice recognition is they do not translate Southern accents very well.
I don't know that they translate anything well, because most of the ones I see are way off. But yeah, you're probably dead on,
Mark,
there. Yep.
Let me lead off with a huge congratulations to you on 25,000. I don't think anybody deserves it any more than you, my friend. Soak up the moment, because I believe this is the first of many milestones.
Well, thanks to folks like you, I believe that it is too. Not because I've done anything great, but you guys are exceptional just to get in here and support and talk up college football, and we have a good time, and we just try to deliver the best we can from my side, and then you guys respond, and it works well. So thank you.
Well, let me move through this. I'm going to try to move expeditiously. I set a timer here so I don't hold you up too long. But let me do a real quick PSA for everybody. One, like the video right now. We have approximately 2.5 times more people watching than liking. Please hit that thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. And two, if you're going to call in to Mark, would you please turn your TV down in the background? We enjoy hearing what Mark has to say. So let me move on to my deal. First of all, let me say this. I would have a slight disagreement of the Norvell taking the hardest first-year coaching situation. Obviously, I'm going to go with Sam Pittman. Most sites had us predicted to win 0 games, 1 at most. Arkansas, the cupboard was bare. It had just been ran to the ground, then set on fire, and then watered down. It was bad. So I think Sam Pittman has done a great job. Of course, I'm a little biased. I am an Arkansas fan, so I would take a little bit with that. I'm not a huge Mike Norvell fan, so there's probably a little slight toward that.
So Mr. TW, to
Yeah.
respond just in regards to the first of all, I was speaking in the moment, so I didn't scan the entire nation. I quickly did within 3 seconds. But I would still stand on Mike Norvell for this reason. I underlined a few times and emphasized compared to the expectations. So yes, Sam Pittman had a more difficult job in winning games than Mike Norvell because he played in a more difficult conference with less talent. But versus the expectation. So if Sam Pittman, for example, I looked at that Arkansas schedule and said at the time, based on what they had done in the SEC, which as you well know, 0-16 the previous 2 years, I said they're going to be an underdog in every game. If things hold and they don't improve, they're going to be an underdog in every game. And there's a possibility here that they go 0-10. And I said the same thing about Vandy. I said, unfortunately for those two, they didn't match them up to make sure that one of them gets a win. They could both go 0-10. I picked them both 1-9, and Vandy pulled through for me. But so Arkansas was expected to go 1-9. So there was no expectation for Arkansas. There was still an expectation that Mike Norvell not to be able to win with top 25 talent. So again, I believe that you're correct in stating that Sam Pittman had a more difficult job because of the schedule and because having less talent, but the expectations are so much higher at this point at Florida State. So that was more so my point.
You know what? You're right on that. When you face expectation, you're exactly right. Hog fans would have just been happy to be competitive and go 0-10, just to be competitive. So yep, you're right on that. So I withdraw that contentious part. You're right on that. Let me say this. Moving forward, the first caller talked about Nick Saban, and you know, every time Nick Saban loses a game, which has been 5 times in the last 6 years, every time Nick Saban loses a game, here come the talking heads out of every corner, everybody looking to make a name for themselves in the sports media, saying, you know, he's fixing to retire. You know, we've seen the best of Saban, and I can't help but think of what Mark Twain said when his death had been wrongly recorded in a prominent newspaper. He replied to the editor, "Reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated."
Yes.
That is the case with Nick Saban every year.
Who are these people,
I
though,
just got back from
Mr. TW? Not to interrupt, but who are these people that are questioning Nick Saban and predicting a demise?
It's the young guys or the new guys in sports media that are looking to make a splash. They want to get that one prediction and say, put it on the record that they were ahead of everybody else. You know, it's the same guys that pick a group of 5 conference guy to be in the playoff every year. And then they can say, well, I was the first one to say it. So hopefully it looks good on their resume at Fox Sports or ESPN trying to get a job. But you do so. And then you have those who question it in the roundabout way of, you know, hey, could this be? And they'll do hours worth of shows throughout the offseason. Is this Nick Saban's last year? They won't draw that conclusion, but they definitely set the tone. I'm not an Alabama fan by any stretch, but I do really like Nick Saban. And to kind of just an illustration, I just got back from Tahoe, went skiing on at Heavenly, and the guy, the first caller was like talking about, up and down. You got to go up and down, up and down. Well, listen, I went on top of Heavenly, I don't know, 30 times and skied down. When you get to the top of the mountain, you have to come down unless you run the mountain, and you can stay up there as long as you want. That's Nick Saban. He owns the mountain. He's not coming down until he wants to come down. And so people trying to, make a splash, and really Auburn fans are incredibly delusional in this area, thinking that they're going to compete anywhere near Nick Saban while Nick Saban is still there. They're delusional in firing Gus Malzahn. I am not a Gus Malzahn fan. Firing him for having what was it, Mark? Was it 80%? He's about an 80% winning record, 75, 80%, somewhere in there.
Low 70s.
Low 7. I mean, wow. Think if you're a baseball player and you hit the ball 70% of the time.
Yeah, but we're talking about an SEC football coach. I didn't think that Gus Malzahn did a horrible job, but I don't think he did a good job, and he would have been out the door for me as well. Right about the same time. I'm not saying that I would have cut him loose 3 or 4 years ago, but after the 2013 BCS championship run, he lost at least 4 games every year.
Yeah. Now, that's true. It just depends. And again, this is where it goes to, as an SEC fan in the SEC West, you constantly see the Auburn fans that think they should be playing with Alabama. There can only be one Alabama in the SEC West. And as long as Saban owns the mountain, he's staying up there as long as he wants. He's going to have some down years where he loses all of 2 games in a year. But it's Mount Saban until he's ready to give it up.
Sure.
And I think it's not that we lower expectations. It's just, then again, I think that much as I don't like Gus Malzahn, he's one of the smartest men on the planet, because he's walking away with almost $50 million in guaranteed money. And now he's going to go play or go coach for Florida. He's going to live in Vacation Central. So he's looking like a genius in this deal.
Well, what program would you compare Auburn to in another conference?
I would compare Auburn to, let's go Big Ten. I would compare Auburn to Iowa State.
Well, you went to the Big 12.
I'm sorry. Big Ten, I meant to say Penn State. Big 12 would be Iowa State.
Penn State was the first one that I thought of. I understand Nick Saban's great, and Nick Saban is winning championships, and I understand that to sit here and evaluate another team or coach against him is the toughest evaluation that you have to make, because Jimbo Fisher could take his Texas A&M program and go out to the Pac-12 and run roughshod, but still they're competitors and they should try to win. It's not like if I was just trying to make a situation in which Nick Saban enters another league with another program, is everybody else just supposed to say, well, if Nick Saban decides to be here for 10 years, we're going to give up?
No, but I think that Auburn needs to look at it this way. And again, I'm not an Auburn fan, but correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't Gus Malzahn beaten Saban at Alabama more than anybody else, or at least one of the top 2 or 3?
3 times. 3 and 6.
3 times. So
yeah,
Dabo hasn't done that, right? He's beaten him twice.
Yeah, but Dabo only played him 4 times. Dabo's 2-2 against him.
True.
It's tough to beat.
But my whole thing. Yeah, right. I mean, you're talking about Mount Saban. You're talking about dethroning the king of college football.
Absolutely.
And I don't think programs should lower their expectation as much as lower the temperature of their fervency. When you're willing to throw $50 million at a man to get rid of him, to hire a guy out of a group of 5, I mean, that's the biggest roll of the dice. And if they get 7 wins this year, that AD needs to go to Vegas, because this is going to be a very interesting year for Auburn. They got talent. I like Brian Harsin personally, but that's a long conversation. Mark, let me end it with this, because the LSU thing's been brought up. And as an SEC West guy, we've been watching LSU get away with it for years. I mean, even in basketball, the FBI has Wade Phillips on recording saying that he paid players to play basketball at LSU. He's still coaching. There's no self-imposed sanction. There's no nothing. What we know about LSU is they gave SMU the death penalty over lack of institutional control. LSU fits the definition of lack of institutional control. It looks like, the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. I mean, look at all the stuff that's coming out about Les Miles, and even if only half of it's true, he's a deviant. And it's terrible what's happened. It's terrible for the women. And I'm not one of these that says, let's instantly make all men guilty. That's not me. I do believe in due process. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's incredibly troubling, like with Derek Geis. I mean, that dude needs counseling. If he's trying to beg a 70-year-old grandma to go to the closet at the stadium, I mean, this is just crazy stuff. But LSU, it shouldn't be self-imposed sanctions. I hate sanctions that hurt these kids. But at some point, I mean, if you're not going to put your foot down on this, why not? And let me make this point. Les Miles is at Kansas. Hey, Jeff Long. Hey, buddy, you fired Bobby Petrino for doing 1/10 of what Les Miles did. Are you going to save face now and fire him? Because that's about all you got left to do.
Well, I believe that they will come to that conclusion with Les Miles, and it may not come out of the morality that should cause that decision to be made. It may just be to save public face, and Les Miles is not doing anything incredible on the football field at Kansas, so they're not losing much or anything from that standpoint. So why not cut ties, get rid of him, and not have to deal with the baggage that's going to be present with him there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no reason to keep
Jeff
Les
Long
Miles at Kansas. If you're at Kansas, it's not like Les Miles just went 10-2 last year and resurrected Kansas football. Why keep him?
Exactly. You're not building a dynasty there. And if I could talk to you, I would just look at Jeff Long and go, dude, you about burned down the Razorback program over Bobby Petrino wrecking his motorcycle with a 20-year-old blonde on the back. I mean, this pales in comparison.
Yes.
I hope you get up and beat your chest so self-righteously like you did at Arkansas. I hope you'll do that at Kansas. The whole walk of shame and everything, because what has done it. Let's not forget, I've got a daughter. If what they're saying is true, or even somewhat true, that's lack of institutional control. And I'm not saying death penalty, but these self-imposed sanctions is a joke. I like Ed Orgeron. I think he's the quintessential LSU football coach. I hope nothing happens to him if he didn't do anything illegal. But watching your report and then reading what I've read about this, there needs to be some serious consequences for what has happened.
Yeah, as I stated, this goes beyond the typical cheating to win football games, which involves typically paying players and changing their grades to keep them eligible. That's usually what that entails. We're talking about horrible behavior against women. We're talking about abusive behavior in amongst those other things.
Right.
There's some money involved and some grades involved and some other stuff. But in addition to that, terrorizing women. It's a criminal offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, and that's another show for a different topic another time. But I mean, these victims live with those scars the rest of their life. It doesn't go away when they pay a fine. It doesn't go away through a therapy session. And if it was, and again, I'm not a me tooer that thinks that every man that's ever been accused ought to go to prison. If it proves out to be the fact through an independent NCAA investigation, this thing should be dealt with openly and above the table. You cannot trust LSU to do that. Again, Wade Phillips, LSU basketball coach, is on FBI recording talking about paying recruits to come play at LSU, and he is still coaching. LSU has no institutional control. It's all across their program, and it's completely rampant.
So, Mr. TW, to your point, I have always defended due process and defended the right to be innocent until proven guilty. Absolutely. I am fully in favor of that. The difference here, as you are stating, is if this was one player, one individual, one incident, or even one individual doing it 17 times, then I would say, okay, that needs to be investigated. That situation needs to be brought to justice. And if he gets exonerated, if he's innocent, great. Whatever the outcome is, whatever the truth is, I want the truth. But when we're talking about 8 and 9 individuals, and the football coach that was in place during this also has that whole track record of lawlessness and infidelity amongst his locker room at Oklahoma State. And then there was also what you're talking about outlining with the basketball program and then also the tennis program. It's obvious. There would have to be a string of coincidences like never before. The odds of 0.00001% for it to not be true.
Yeah. Right. Let me ask you this, because one of the things, and I said I was going to move quickly here, but one of the things that bothers me is when we talk about college football players, we say, well, they're kids. These kids, with the Darius guys, grabbing himself and trying to, the 70-year-old grandma that he was trying to have sex with at the stadium, security guard. And we say, oh, he's just a kid that was brought up in a broken home. Can I ask you something? Why is it we call 19-year-old football players kids, but 19-year-old soldiers we call men? At some point, don't they take responsibility for their own actions after 18? And this is what bothers me. And I love college football and passionate about it. But if a soldier, a sailor, airman, Marine does something a little off kilter, we're ready to torch them. But a football player or an athlete, they're just a kid. No, the last time I checked, at 18, you can vote, you can buy cigarettes. 21, you can buy alcohol. They need to be treated like men. Now, I'm one of the biggest proponents in redemption. I believe in redemption totally if there's been repentance. Don't be sorry you got caught. Be sorry for what you did. And obviously, Les Miles, and from what we're understanding, Les Miles, that dude's got some issues. And he fostered that in his program, Birds of a Feather.
Absolutely.
And so that's the way I feel about it. Yes, they're young men, but let's quit acting like they're 12-year-old boys. If you're at 19 and 20 years old, don't know not to hit a woman, shove her into a bathroom, sexually assault her, you're a moron. And you absolutely don't belong in public. You need to go back home or go to an institution and learn how to be a decent human being. Let's quit saying, well, they're just kids. No, they're grown men. Just like that 18-year-old stopping bullets in Iraq is a grown man. You have to be responsible for your actions. At some point, you got to suck it up and say, it's me.
Absolutely.
Mark, love you, brother. I'm jumping off because I know you got a lot of people wanting to get on. Congrats.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So, yeah, I've got a lot to add to that, but we will move on with the college football discussion. I will say one thing to that as I take on the call from Jared, who's been waiting very patiently on the line to talk about the college football playoff. But before we get to Jared here, I do want to say that, if you're old enough to commit a crime, then you should be held accountable for the crime. And so, yes, an 18-year-old is a man in that sense. Now, do I expect an 18-year-old to be as much of an adult as I am? So when 18-year-olds get on Twitter and 21-year-olds and even 25-year-olds get on Twitter or social media, this is just an example, and say stupid things, make stupid remarks, and say things, I excuse that to a certain extent. I don't hold them as accountable as a 40-year-old. Because they are going through the process of becoming young men. But when it harms physically and emotionally harms someone else and is a crime, then they need to be held to the extent of the law. All right, Jared, you on the line?
Hey, yeah. Hey, long time listener, first time caller, and I have to agree with that actually hit me pretty good. That was a good point by the last caller as far as I do hear about. They're just kids, and that's a good point. At 18, you can go to jail for messing up. I mean, these kids shouldn't be given preferential treatment when it comes to the law or breaking laws or whatnot. So yeah, that last caller made a great point. But congratulations on the 25,000, and I want to talk a little bit about some CFP expansion. What do you think?
Well, for listening to us for a long time, I appreciate, Jared, that you've picked up the phone and called us. It's good to hear from you. Absolutely.
You too. Well, I think you've got with the 8 team. Not that I think the 8 team is the final solution, but I do think that that's the best solution short term, because you got some folks in some college football fans that don't like change. So if you go straight to a 16, it's just not going to happen. But I think the 8 team is genius for the fact that you get the group of.
Jared, you still with us? Jared, hello. Unfortunately.
Diving ball.
Oh, there you are. Jared, we could not hear you for like the last 30 seconds. So back up, please.
Oh, where was the last part that you heard?
I have
me?
no idea what happened, except that you said would love to get to 16. We're at 8. That was pretty much where you were.
Okay. I was saying that the 8 team is a great transition. I was thinking that, with college football fans, they don't like quick. So I think that the 8 team is a perfect transition, but I think that the 16 team playoff is the perfect end, and that should be as far as it goes. As far as the 8 team, I think it's a good transition to the fact that you've got the Power 5. You're going to get all of the Power 5 champs in. You get one of the group of 5 teams in. That keeps them involved. And then you get your independents, and you get your 2, SEC or Big Ten runner-ups or whatever But I do think the 8 team is a good transition. But I do think that the 16 team is the perfect number, and I can get to that. But what do you think about what I just said about the 8 team?
So we posted a live stream a couple weeks ago in which I unveiled my playoff system. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out.
I did.
Pardon me?
I did see that, and I enjoyed that. Very good.
Very good. So you know what I propose. So how is your
Indeed.
playoff system different than mine?
I think the 16-team playoff system is perfect.
Oh, 16.
However, I think that I do. I think the 16-team playoff system that you have is perfect. However, I think the 8 team is the best transition to get the old school college football thing eased back to the point to where they'll move towards the 16-team playoff in the future. That's what I was trying to get at is that the 8-team playoff is a good transition. I don't think we can jump from a 4 to a 16-team playoff. But I do think the 16-team playoff is the creme de la creme, and I'll explain that here in a second. And what do you think about that as far as the 8-team playoff being a good transition? What do you think of that?
So we have to evaluate teams to determine who makes the playoffs. Therefore, the first point in all of this that I don't hear anybody else address that I address is that I think the scheduling needs to be fixed. The scheduling needs to be fixed first. So we'll put that aside, but just that is my that's my starting point to the whole playoff discussion. And the formulation of my playoff system is fixing scheduling first. Okay. Once we do that, then let's say if we're going to go to an 8-team playoff, so The next determination that I believe needs to be made is about the group of 5. I posted a poll a few weeks ago to get everybody's response on whether they believe the group of 5 should be included or should be excluded. Because right now we're in this gray area where they are technically included, technically they're being considered, but they're really not. It's really patronizing. It's bottom line insulting to them because they're not going to be included. It would take the most bizarre situation for a group of 5 team to make the playoff. We would have to just have utter chaos and cannibalization in multiple conferences with 3 lost champions to get a group of 5 team in the playoff. Or we need a Cincinnati next year to beat Indiana and Notre Dame, run the table, win all their games, and then we're going to have some kind of big debate and controversy. So I want a definitive declaration on the group of 5 to say either they're formally included or they are completely excluded. One or the other. Make a decision. I can build a playoff system with either one. I couldn't agree
with you more.
I can build a playoff system either way. And I see arguments for either one. For both of those directions.
I couldn't agree with you more, but this is where I think the 16-team playoff that you introduced is the creme de la creme, and here's why I say it. It's for the overall growth of sport and to turn it into a national sport. It will easily surpass the NFL if it becomes a 16-team playoff, and here's why I say that, is you're going to have kids and you can even talk about long-term recruiting repercussions. It won't be predictable anymore. 10 years down the road, you're still going to have those old school powerhouses, the Ohio States, Alabamas. They're still going to be on top. However, you're going to have 1 or 2 kids from a Mountain West conference or a MAC conference that's going to go to one of these group of 5 schools just because they know they have a chance to make a playoff from those schools. Like I said, it's not going to be a quick change, but in 10 years, I think that the playoff system will be a little bit closer than people would expect. And I think that the Power 5 fans are a little bit scared of that. Let's be honest, though. They're going to enjoy those playoff games a lot more, having home games, Tuscaloosa or whatnot. But yeah, I think the 6th playoff, that's where it's at. And also, the Power 5 conferences, they're going to have 5 extra slots, most likely. Maybe you're going to have 1 independent in the wild card slot, but you're going to have 5 extra slots for those runner-up to the SEC, runner-up to the Big Ten. It's going to be a blast, and it's going to surpass the NFL easily. What are your thoughts on that?
I love everything that you brought to the table, Jared, especially when you consider my playoff system to be the creme de la creme. I like that. Anytime you want to produce any promotions for me, we'll get those out there. But the only thing I would disagree with you there, and it can't be proven, but I don't see college football surpassing the NFL. But I would love to see that happen, but I just don't see it happening. So if I follow you, you like the playoff system that I proposed with the 16 teams with all the group of 5 champions being included.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it goes back to the recruiting.
I love that.
I believe the recruiting would improve.
Yep.
I believe that you won't have Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, they're still going to have the best players, but the gap will narrow. And the reason I say this is, example, I grew up in New Mexico. I'm a Buckeyes fan. I graduated from OSU. Grew up in New Mexico. Guys like Landry Jones, they go to Oklahoma. Well, hey, that guy might go to a WAC school or a Mountain West school just for the fact that he knows he's going to make it into a playoff. Most likely, if he's lesser, if they know that they're going to be included into a playoff, a great coach there. You got a kid from a state that's not a well-known farm of excellent talent, but you got these once-in-a-lifetime guys. They might go to that home state. And then you're going to have an example. People from New Mexico, they're not all about college football, and it's because it's a regional sport, man. I mean, you'll have some folks that watch college football, but it's not big time. Over time, if you make it a 16-team playoff, now you got people from all over the country into college football. And yeah, you're right. The NFL, it's hard to surpass, but hey, maybe it might be longer than 10 years. Maybe it'd be 50 years. But I think eventually it will pass the NFL because of the simple fact that you've got more universities than college or NFL teams. You've got more of local fan bases. It'll grow. It might take a long time, but eventually I think that the NFL will be passed up.
And I'm not going to laugh at that in any way, shape, or form, because I was thinking in the short term. But if you would go back in time to the 1950s and say that Major League Baseball was going to be the third or fourth most popular sport in America in 60 or 70 years, I'm sure a lot of people would have laughed at you because it was the most important and most popular sport in America. So things do change.
True.
Things do change. What I like about the 16-team playoff, including all the conference champions, is that I like the thought of earning a spot, not just having people determine that you're the best, you're one of the best, but that you actually earned it in a structured format. You play in a conference. We are giving this conference value. And you won the conference, therefore you earned the championship. And like I outlined a number of times, let's face it, if we have that 16-team playoff format, we will definitely have the 11 best teams in the country playing in that college football playoff because they're going to be the five Power Five. They're going to be the 5 Power 5 conference champions, and they're going to be the 6 wild cards from the Power 5s. Those are the 11 best teams in the country. And then the American Conference champion, whether it's Memphis or Cincinnati, could be the 18th best team in the country. And the Conference USA champion might be the 55th best team in the country. So no, are we going to have the 16 best teams in the country playing? No. But if you can't, anybody that would complain out of a Power 5 conference that they didn't make it, or the likes of a Penn State or Auburn or TCU would complain to say, well, we're better than UAB, the conference USA champion. Well, you have 11 spots to fill. If you can't make one of those 11 spots or win your conference or be a second place team in your conference, then you've got nothing to complain about. For the other schools that are not as good because they won the MAC or they won the Mountain West, but they at least earned it. And you're right. I think it would be fascinating to see Ohio State play Boise State in the first round of a college football playoff game and see Clemson play UAB and on and on and on and on. And the first year that we have, it may take 3 years, it might take 8 years, it might take 15 years to see a monumental upset. But even the first time that we see a scare, we see Clemson with only a 24-21 lead against Coastal Carolina with 5 minutes left, that's going to be worth it.
Exactly. You'll earn there's no question that you can tell your team, you win the conference, you're in it. Regular seasons, we can go into scheduling another day, like you said. You've talked about it plenty of times. The scheduling needs to be fixed. However, you tell your team, we win the conference, we're in the playoff. There's no question about it. And back to the home playoff game. Tell me that Ohio State home playoff game would not sell more tickets for higher prices than the Browns or the Bengals, hands down, year one.
Oh,
it's not even close.
No.
And that's why I say eventually, give it. It might be 50 years. It will pass in my opinion, it will pass the NFL. It may take a little longer than I said 10 years. It could take longer, but you know how these college football fans are. We're serious about this stuff, man. And a home playoff game, that nobody can argue with that.
As you well know, the knock against an 18 playoff and more so a 16-team playoff is that people say that they don't want college football to turn into college basketball, and they're being meaningless games played. Okay, I argue the exact opposite. I argue that if you would track, and if I had the time, I could prove this. I would go through the schedules each season, and I would prove it, that if you take the final, let's say, 3 weekends of the college football season under the current format, and it was even worse under the BCS format, there were very few games. If all you cared about was the national championship, there were very few games that mattered the final 2 or 3 weekends, because there were only, in the BCS era, 4 or 5 teams in contention. And now you can broaden that out to a few more, 7 or 8 in contention. Therefore, all the other games in the country are meaningless if all you care about is the national championship and the playoff. If you go to 8 teams or to 16, that actually makes more games important in November, because there are more teams that will have an opportunity to play themselves into a playoff, number one. Number two, for the argument that you're going to have the Alabamas of the world who are going to lock up a playoff spot early. Therefore, they're going to play a meaningless game against, let's say, Auburn the final weekend of the season, or their SEC championship game against whomever is going to be meaningless. Could that possibly happen? Yes, it could possibly happen, but it can possibly happen now. Alabama played an SEC championship game this year that, had they lost, everybody said they're still making the playoffs. So we already have that, number one. Number two, you partially correct that by putting first round games on campus. And so you give Alabama the incentive to go out and win that SEC championship game, because Alabama, do you want to play at home in the first round of the playoffs, or do you want to go to Madison, Wisconsin, or Seattle, Washington, or Happy Valley? Do you want to go there in December, or do you want to play at home? Well, you better win your games.
Absolutely. And who wouldn't want to see a game of Alabama at Wisconsin, man?
Oh,
I'm telling you, that would be way better than, you talk about NFL. That'd be way better than a Green Bay versus Atlanta Falcons.
oh,
Come on.
absolutely.
Anyone would watch
Sure.
that game. People would be tuning into an Alabama at a Wisconsin any day of the week over Atlanta Falcons against Green Bay. Let's be real.
Not in year 1 and not in year 5. I know you love college football and you prefer it over the NFL, but let's understand that the NFL ratings compared to college football aren't close. And just because you send Alabama to go play in Wisconsin and it's snowing isn't going to multiply the audience exponentially and drag down the NFL. Just look at it objectively. The NFL just.
I am being objective, and I don't think that the NFL would drop. I don't think the NFL would drop their views, but I do think the college football would raise their views, and I do think the sport as a whole, including youth sports, would grow. It's just a win-win. I mean, if anyone's going to say that it's not going to help the sport in general, they're wrong.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, I appreciate the call. You've got anything else for us?
Thanks, Mark. No, I don't. I appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. The views will keep going up. I can see it. I got a recommendation for this channel about 6 months ago, and best recommendation I got from YouTube. People hit the like button, and the algorithm somehow they'll get to more people. And guess what? People ain't going to be leaving the channel. It's great. You're doing great, Mark. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Jared. I appreciate the phone call. Call back anytime.
Have a good night.
All right, let's move it on to, don't know who this is calling, but they're calling about scandals. Looks like it's Steven calling about scandals in college football, probably concerning LSU. Steven, how are we doing tonight? Hello, Steven. How are we doing tonight?
Good, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you? Nothing much. So I've been kind of following the LSU thing a little bit, and I did watch your thing with the guy from LSU Odyssey, and it was an interesting case about how LSU for a while has been doing things under the let's say, under the rug per se, more or less. And it got me thinking about all the past scandals that have happened so far in the last 20 years or so, besides SMU. And a lot of these programs, I think, that should get the death penalty because, in my opinion, if you give a program a death penalty like they did at SMU, it changes the perception of what the administration can do and what they should be paying attention to, because now they understand that they made a mistake and they can't be doing the same things like they were doing in the past. Do you think that is possible that if you do that would change things around, or do you think they would still do the same things?
So what in that is going to correct behavior? Did I miss something there?
Yeah. If you give a program like the death penalty, like how SMU had the death penalty back in the late 80s.
Okay.
You think that would change the behavior of how schools would behave and how they would be accountable to themselves?
So if, for example, in this situation, LSU was given the death penalty, would that be a deterrent to other programs?
Yes.
I'm a big believer in fair but strong punishment. And therefore, I would think that I don't think it's a cure-all, because I think there's a lot of arrogance among competitors at that level. And I think, again, we see this throughout history, not just in sports. We see it in government and other places, that people will continue to believe that they're above the law, that they can't be touched, that they're just arrogant and believe it's not going to happen to them or catch up with them, or they believe that the risk is worth it to gain some level of power, prestige, money, all those things. Power is a very, this is not a great statement to make grammatically, but power is a very powerful thing. Really dominates people and has really ruined people throughout history. Just the greed beyond money of just power really captivates people. They will do insane things and take insane risks to have that feeling of power and authority and popularity. So I don't think that that's going to eliminate it, but would that be a deterrent? I think it would be a strong deterrent if the death penalty was, if there were programs out there that legitimately thought, okay, if we get caught doing this, we will probably get the death penalty because LSU did 8 years ago, and then School B did 3 years ago, and they're investigating so-and-so right now, and it looks like they're going to. Sure.
Well, I came up with a list of schools within the past 20 years that I think deserve the death penalty, and what has been revealed so far in the past, let's say 10 years, I would say that these certain programs do deserve death penalty. So if you want to, would you be willing to say yes or no to the list of teams I would say would deserve the death penalty based on what has happened in the last 20 years?
Okay.
If I were to tell you which teams?
Sure. Go to it.
Okay. So the first one is Baylor, and that I would say that the football program would be the first one to go in that. And then in all seriousness, I still think this way. They should have had a death penalty for at least 2 to 3 years for them to really see shockwaves throughout the program where people realize we screwed up and now we're suffering consequences because now we don't have any. I think the other thing is that's driving all these decisions is the money. So if they are losing money, they're going to make sure they don't do the same thing again by losing a lot of money. So what are your thoughts on the Baylor?
So before we get to Baylor's specific situation, my question to you, or my statement would be, you understand that if we would go to that extreme, the best way to approach it would be to say every situation's different, but at the same time, these criteria are being measured and evaluated and are the ones that will determine the death penalty. People need to understand what will cause that type of punishment to be levied. So there has to be a clear set of guidelines put out there.
Right. And I believe that there should be set guidelines. And I think that I would say if you have if it's more than one player that's causing this issue, or there's more than one player making an incident of this, I feel like that point, if you have multiple players and it's been happening for a couple of years, like Baylor had with Art Briles, I think at that point, to me, you've lost control of what the program is, and it needs to be reset.
Okay.
And the only way for it to be reset is if you give them the death penalty.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it.
Exactly. So some of the criteria we're talking about is, number one, how severe is it? That's the most important criteria, is how severe are these actions? Is somebody changing a grade from a D- to a B+? Okay, that's not very severe, but it's important, but it's not severe. Okay, so what is the severity? I think that's by far the most important criteria. Number two would be, yes, how widespread is it? Do 3 people know about this? Does everybody in the football program know about it? How far up within the school administration is it aware? I also think that, yes, what is the length of time? Has this been going on? Was this isolated to a 3-month situation, and then so-and-so got fired, and we're finding out about it 5 years later, and there should be some type of penalty, but it's over with, it's done, and it was isolated, or this has been ongoing for 12 years. So the length of time. I think those are basically, and then you've got your just different categories of whether these infractions simply violate the NCAA and which are logical and profitable type rules to govern amateur sports. You shouldn't be cheating on exams to stay eligible. You shouldn't be paying players, they're amateur athletes, and all those sorts of things. But at least it's confined to the competition for winning football games. It's confined to cheating to win football games, versus once we get into criminal behavior, beating people up, abusing women, abusing children, et cetera, then we're moving into a criminal aspect of that type of behavior and allegations. That has to be considered too.
So, So do you think, based on what we decided was kind of a basis for the severity, do you think Baylor deserves the death penalty based on what you remember happening, or was told about Baylor when it happened under Art Briles?
I would like to know. I would like to know.
Okay.
Beyond the football program, because he's at the top of the football program and of course reports to the athletic director. Was there knowledge of these transgressions? At what level?
Well, from what I've understood, and from what I understood, and I actually did a lot more research into the Baylor thing, is that both the president and the person that did the trial for Bill Clinton, can't remember his name. He was like the person that was leading the impeachment trial for Bill Clinton. He was also part of that, and he stepped down because he knew about it, and the AD also at the time knew about it too. So people up top knew about it. The board of directors didn't know about it, but the people at top, like the president and the person that was behind them, the AD, I think to a certain degree knew about it. But the president resigned because he knew he covered it up and he didn't care. So that's how much was known at the top. Other than that, that's about as much as I know about who at the top knew.
Because I think the most important aspect of this is that going forward, the people that are innocent are protected. The people that are victims are justified as much as they possibly can be, whether that's monetarily or otherwise. and that
Right.
the people that committed the acts are, of course, brought to justice, and then the people that allowed it are brought to justice as well. So
Right.
this is about the best analogy I can come up with off the top of my head, and it might be a poor one, but let's say I had 15 people working for me, but I was still the only one
Right.
that anyone saw on here, and I had certain viewership and so forth, and it went beyond just the analysis of college football, but you guys enjoy maybe the interaction in the live chat, and a lot of people that would have not otherwise been able to build relationships are able to do that, and it's basically a positive experience. But I did something horrible,
Right.
horrible. Okay. But there's 12
Mhm.
or 15 people working under me, let's say, which is not the case. It's just me. But let's say I've got 12 or
Yeah.
15 people on staff that have no involvement in it at all. Should this channel
Right.
be shut down because of what I did? Or should I just be removed? And as soon as I'm removed, then we have, or let's say 2 of the 12 people were involved and knew and aided me and supported me in this. Why don't we just remove myself and those 2 other people, not penalize the 10 or 12 people who were innocent and are productive people, and penalize the viewers and everything positive that's coming from this, and just continue to run this channel, but remove me and those people that allowed it?
I think this is kind of how I see it. I think that even if you remove 2 people that were kind of that know about it, the lasting impact they have for covering up is reverberated throughout the entire program. Even if you remove the 2 people that did it, I still think you're still going to have underlying issues that are going to keep coming back up later on in the future, and it's never going to go away. And so I say, to really take care of it, I think you just need to kill it off completely and restart from fresh. Because I feel like that is the only way to actually make sure that if something like this happens, you want to make sure it never happens again, and you want to make sure that people understand that if this happens again, we're screwed, and we can't afford to have this happen again. Everybody needs to, that even though people that were not involved in it, they need to either resign or step down and find another job, because they know that this situation has tainted what they wanted it to, or what they had it to become, and they needed to get out of the situation because to either make it right or to change how the program is perceived or viewed by others.
So I
think that.
Yep. So my question is, do you think that the SMU football program has recovered from the death penalty?
Oh yeah, they have.
No, they haven't.
This past.
No.
Oh, they haven't. Okay.
My answer is that they have not.
I guess
they were finishing in the top 5 in the country. They are nowhere close to the football program that they were, playing in a major conference and playing the likes of Texas and Arkansas on a weekly basis, and playing in a major conference, and finished. They won a Cotton Bowl. They finished in the top 10 in the nation a few times in 81, 82, 83, in that range. So they have not recovered completely. Are they a good Group of 5 program? Yes, they are. They are one of the 60 or 70, maybe, best football programs in the country. But at the time, they weren't one of the 5 or 10 best football programs in the country. They had one of the 5 or 10 best teams in the country, but they were a top 15 to 20 program. So they've not recovered. Were all those people brought to justice? Well, we believe so. And here we are 35 years later, and the program and everybody that was ever connected to SMU football that was innocent, they don't have the football program that they once had.
Right. I would say that with SMU, these past 2 years have shown that they are starting to become competitive again. They're not to where they were when they were back in the Southwest Conference, but I feel like they're getting competitive in the way that they are picking up players that they feel that can bring the program back to some sort of relevance and still be able to compete within the American Athletic Conference. So I think in the last 2 years, they've gotten to a point where they're going to be somewhat ranked sometimes throughout the year, but they're not going to be like the bottom dwellers of the conference like they probably were about like 5 or 10 years ago. So I feel like there has been some recovery in that amount of time, but it, like you said, it probably hasn't fully recovered, and it probably will never fully recover. But at least now that it's been long enough where over time things will get better and people will most likely have learned from that lesson and will try to do better not to do it again. So I guess that's kind of how I see it.
I'm not thinking that you're doing anything morally or ethically wrong. If anything, you're taking the higher ground. And for most of my life, I would have tended to agree with you. But the older I get, the more although I am, believe me, I am on the right side of the justice scale, true justice. I'm not talking about like crazy social media justice that gets wielded upon people, but I'm talking about true justice. I will always be on that side, but I tend to forgive more easily these days, being older in life, and just do not like to see that collateral damage, and believe that the people that committed the crimes or broke the guidelines and the laws can be dealt with in a harsh manner, in an appropriate manner, and the football program can still be spared. It's going to suffer a huge ramification from all of that.
Right. I think sometimes when you suffer a huge ramification, people actually open their eyes and realize, like, oh, we were doing something that weren't supposed to be doing, and now that we've lost this, we are going to try our darndest not to do it again. Because if we are affected by this so much, like how SMU was affected, they're going to be try to be on the more straight and narrow than probably most other programs would be, so that they don't suffer the same consequences again. Because I feel like once you get like I said, if you get like a death penalty for a certain program, they're going to open their eyes like, oh, we shouldn't have done this in the first place. Why did we allow this in the first place? And then they're going to realize that we need to change things around so that this doesn't happen again. And then hopefully when they are able to come back from the death penalty, they will have things in place to make sure that we're never ever going to try to have that happen again, so that we don't suffer the same consequences as we did before. And I think that's what I think the death penalty would do to some of these programs that have been having these issues. And going to another program that I think should have gotten the death penalty was Michigan State, with how they let this person that was part of the health recovery area, can't remember, Adler. Was it Adler? I think it was. But he was there for 20 years, and everybody knew what he was doing, but didn't report it. And it was in football and also basketball that it got related to that certain person.
Absolutely.
Certain thing. So and what I'm saying with Baylor and Michigan State is that I think both those programs need to have the death penalty for people to realize that this has been going on for so long that if you just let it go on and on and on, at some point it's going to corrupt everything that's inside the program, even outside the program. So
you don't need to enforce the death penalty though to deal with those issues. But Stephen, I appreciate the phone call. Right. We've been on this for a long time, and I don't know that everybody's as passionate about this, but I appreciate your passion in going through this. But we've got a number of people waiting to jump on the line. Okay. Appreciate that, Stephen.
Well, thank you for letting me call in, Mark, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. We've got Kevin from Dallas calling in. He wants to talk about Georgia, Gus Malzahn, Penn State, and I don't believe the FCC. It's probably the ACC or the SEC, and maybe I'll be able to get this to
Good evening, Mark.
through. Hey, Kevin,
before
how
we
you
go
doing?
into it, I'm doing great. Want to congrats, and as far as I guess we need to call you Mr. 25K. So I'm going to have to refer to you for the remainder of the evening as Mr. 25K.
Well, hopefully you're not going to be
really,
able to call me that for a long time. We want to keep that short-lived, maybe for a couple weeks, 25K.
Just for the evening, for the evening, Mark.
Okay.
Just for the evening.
Okay.
So the three subjects real quick, and just going to pick it back as far as your previous callers. One was in reference to who has more to prove as far as this year, as far as Penn State, Auburn, as well as Malzahn briefly, and then as far as the difference between law breakers and rule breakers. As far as going back to the Penn State Auburn, I would have to push back a little bit, Mark, as far as you and the initial caller, and that is, I feel that Penn State has more this year. I think for this year, Auburn is going to be a mulligan year because, hey, the expectations are, I'm not going to say will be, are, after the hiring, low. So, I mean, if Auburn finishes 500, they should consider it a boom this year. But as far as Penn State is concerned, I'm not talking about a firing thing as far as Coach Franklin. But, the thing is, if they lose the doggone Auburn game, there's really no way in the world that they should lose the Auburn game at home. Now, if it was in Auburn, I would say the game would be competitive. But since it's in Happy Valley, and I don't know whether it's a 11 o'clock kickoff or a 3 o'clock kickoff or it's going to be a whiteout, but I would think that after, going into the second half, when it's all said and done, Penn State should win that game. I'm thinking shoot at least by 10, 14 points. Now, as far as Malzahn is concerned, Malzahn and Mullen suffer from, I don't want to recruit itis, Mark. And that was his biggest downfall on the player end. But then as far as on the coaching end, his biggest thing is he could only get up for one game. And as you all stated earlier, he can only get up for Alabama. He can only be creative versus Alabama every year. Every other game prior to and after Alabama, he's vanilla. Even when it comes to a bowl game, he's only, in the last 2 years, only one bowl game has he shown up. When he played, what was that, Purdue?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was 2 years ago. But as far as this last bowl game, I think that was with Northwestern as far as the last bowl game, didn't show up, but they showed up for Purdue. So, the blessing is that, hey, Malzahn is away from Saban, and by that being the case, he can get up for every game. And then briefly, Mark, as far as the previous caller was talking about Baylor. And I just wanted to go as far as not on the football that don't bounce the right way, but the football that bounces the wrong way. The right way, excuse me. You look at with one institution, they have shown lack of institutional control as far as on the football side and on the basketball side. Now, on both sides, they were criminal. But on the basketball side, Mark, you had a doggone teammate kill a teammate. And the only thing that happened on the basketball side in reference to that, Mark, was, okay, the coach resigned. The gentleman who was killed, hey, he was laid to rest. And then the person who perpetrated the crime, was in prison. So if you're not, that's law. So it's a difference between lawbreakers and rule breakers. Now, rule breakers, as you stated, okay, when it's all said and done, okay, you change grades, you offer the charge instead of the challenger, you offer the 150 instead of the 350 as far as the truck. Okay, those are laws those are rules that are being broken, and okay, you're punished. And as you stated before, Mark, as far as a death penalty, as you plainly stated it as far as for the previous caller, they're not going to do that again. Because, okay, is SMU competitive? On a scale of 1 to 10, you could probably say a 5 or a 6. But are they what they once were? No.
I'm right there with you. Oh, Kevin,
And,
did we
and,
lose you?
and, that,
Okay.
and that was just really the thing. Oh, and pardon me, Mark. And that was just the thing as far as it really got me about the Baylor situation. Okay, you had someone to be killed. We're not talking about as far as a fight, but you have a teammate kill another teammate, and those are the only repercussions. Coach resigned, player laid to rest, the other player serves time. That's it. And if you're under 40, this is in your front mirror. I mean, as far as in your windshield. But as far as if you're under 40, I mean, I guess this must be ancient history that people have forgotten as far as what has transpired at one institution. But yet you had all this lack of institutional control. But yet, the beat still goes on with them. The beat still goes on with Michigan State, etc.
Good stuff, Kevin. Is there anything you need out of me?
Yes, sir. And it's just that, hey, I appreciate as far as you indulging not just me but us. And I didn't want to, be as far as long-winded as I was, but it's just a matter of just simply as far as when your previous calls had thrown some things out there. I was going to just be the conscientious objector this evening, just sit back and listen. But hey, when they put a few things as far as in the wheelhouse, I felt I had to at least be case at the bat. So thanks once again. Congratulations, Mark, and you have a good evening, man.
Appreciate that, Kevin. Thanks for calling, as always.
Thank you.
All right. I want to remind everyone that we're have a big giveaway tonight. So get a face mask favoring your favorite team that represents and brands your favorite team. So what you need to do is go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. Go right there. At the top of the line, you will see the very top of the page, register for free. So register at the voiceofcollegefootball.com. There it is, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Check out the site. See what we've got available there. Alabama fans, you'll like the picture we've chosen to represent the page for right now. Register again, voiceofcollegefootball.com. You get a free team mask, depending on your team. I don't have the list here, but it's basically everybody in the SEC, minus South Carolina, everybody else in the SEC, Miami, Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas, Oregon, I believe USC as well. So those are the teams that are available. It's at least 25, 30 teams available. So get a face mask, your favorite team. And then you get 20% off your first purchase. And you also are eligible for the drawing, in which we are going to be giving out a $25 gift certificate, gift card to the website. So there you go. voiceofcollegefootball.com. Please check it out. Even if you don't want a face mask, and why wouldn't you? We still have to wear them. And you can save them for later, just in case that they're mandated to be worn who knows when. So get yourself a face mask, favorite team, get it there, 20% off. So what is going to happen is you register at the Voice of College Football, and then I'm going to send you an email back with a coupon code. You use that coupon code to get your free mask, and then you get 20% off your first purchase. And then you're in the drawing as well to win a $25 gift card. So how about that? Good stuff. Our first ever giveaway here at the Voice of College Football. All right. I was looking at some numbers today and some lists today, considering it's what it is, the 25,000 subscribers. And I went back. Our first subscriber. I have no idea who this is, but they are the first subscriber. They're still on the list. So there's probably a first subscriber who then canceled a subscription. Probably. This is the first subscriber who still is a subscriber, and I'll get to the call in just a second. Here they are. Applause all around for our first subscriber, Phoenix 462. Phoenix 462. I don't know that you've ever commented in a live chat or to a video or anything else, but Phoenix 462 is still a subscriber since May. Let's get the exact date. Since May 12th, 2010. May 12th, 2010, Phoenix 462, a subscriber. So I went through the list of subscribers. And I thought, I want to catch up with the first person who I still see in the live chat and making comments and that has some engagement with the channel. So we got a call tonight from Jared, who said, I've been watching a year and I've never commented, never called. And so there are tons of people out there that watch the videos, that watch the live streams, but don't take part, which is fine. I would love to hear from you to know that you're supporting us. But if that's what you want to do, is just kick back and not engage in the conversation, that's great. Just listen to the conversation here. But so the first person that I could identify as someone who is still active would be our 458th subscriber, number 458, Leon Hurricanes. So Leon, if you're listening right now, or if anybody knows Leon, just let him know that I'm not going to say the word, gave him a shout out. I called him out, recognized him here. Number 458, Leon Hurricanes. And then since he was so close, and there were a couple others so close, I thought that I would recognize them as well. Eric Birch at number 459. I still see Eric commenting to the channel. Brendan O'Leary comments to the channel, number 470. And at number 473, Steve Levy. Not that Steve Levy, but Steve Levy, who's a USC fan, number 473. I was looking for a Navy Thomas, and I just didn't come up with Navy Thomas. And I looked through the first 800 subs. So I don't know if I missed him or what happened there, because I got to think it took me a long time to get this thing ramped up. Believe me, it took me something like 8 years, close to 8 years to get to 5,000 subs. Close to 8 years to get to 5,000 subs. Then it took like another maybe 8 or 9 months to get the other 5,000 subs to get us to 10,000. So think about that progress. 8 years to get to 5,000 subs, and then like 8 or 9 months to get to 10,000 subs. And then it took us like another year and a half, something in that range, to get to 20,000, which we got sometime last football season. And so now it's taken us about another, I don't know, maybe 6 months to get the other 5,000 to 25,000. So my favorite, one of my favorite, I won't distinguish this one, but one of my favorite comments of the night comes in from Mark East, who said, let's get to 100,000. 100,000. You get to 100,000 on YouTube, and you can really sustain a business. So that's what we need to do. Let's get to 100,000. So again, go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Maybe for no other reason, just to check out what we have available there. But get your free team mask. Up at the top, you will see where it says register for free. And you just fill in your name, and you can give us some information if you'd like. I would like to see who you root for and how long you've been watching and anything else you want to tell me. But you don't have to. But your name. And then I'm going to send you an email with a coupon code that gets you the free mask, and then also the 20% off your first purchase at the store. And then in addition to that, you're in the drawing for a $25 gift certificate, gift card. I think it's a gift card. Let's be accurate. All right, let's get to the phone lines here. We've got something about the Dade College football playoffs. This is probably the Voice activation screwing up again. Hello, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's David.
Oh, it's Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I signed up for the your registration, so I'll be looking forward to an Alabama match.
There we
Okay.
go. Everybody follow in
Okay.
line with what Dave has just done. Dave just went over to the website. He registered. He's going to get himself an Alabama mask. Very nice.
Yes, and I'll need one. Although I did get the COVID shot last Thursday, so I'm feeling a little fatigued. But I think I'll be able to hang in, okay?
But you're doing okay.
Yes, I got
Okay.
the first one Thursday. I get the second one March 25th. But anyway, I just want to talk to you about the college football playoffs. Okay, if you got 16 teams or 8 or 4, who would do it? Would you allow the committee to continue or go back to the BCS format?
Neither. No committees, Dave.
Neither.
We don't need committees.
Committee?
You don't need committees.
Okay, who would pick the teams, Mark?
We don't need to pick teams. Do you watch the NFL?
Yes. But
Okay.
who would
As
pick the
as soon
8
as
teams
soon
or
as I
16 teams?
as soon as I bring up the NFL, I know a ton of people out there go crazy. We don't want college football to be the NFL. Well, you know that you can have a system. It doesn't have to be anything close to the NFL. It doesn't make college football like the NFL, but you at least have a system. So, Dave, I'll ask you this question. Who picks the teams to make the NFL playoffs?
It's based on your record.
Oh,
It's based on your division. And if
yes.
there's ties, there's a complicated tie-breaking system.
There you
okay?
go.
That-
Nobody, that's the answer. Nobody picks the teams that make the NFL playoffs. Why are we having people pick teams to make the playoffs?
But how would you do it,
I'll
Mark?
pick them.
How
Somebody
would
want to
you
give
pick-
me that power?
how
I'll
would you
pick the
pick
teams that
the
make the
teams?
playoffs.
How, though?
Okay. All
You
right.
got to have
Here
some
you go.
system.
Okay.
BCS, for all the critics, it worked. I mean, you have computers and the human element.
Dave,
Those two things, I think you picked.
I love your calls.
the
I appreciate
committee,
you
I'm not
being
sure.
here. You know that, Dave. You know that
Right.
I appreciate your phone calls and I love you taking part with us all the time. But the BCS didn't work. How did it work?
I disagree, Mark. I disagree, Mark.
Okay.
There's
All right.
analysis
Okay. Do you want me?
with the
I can
basic-
go down a list of about 37 reasons why it didn't work. But
Well, I can go through a couple. BCS, if you look at it, they picked the top 2 teams. If you calculate it even out, they were right 95% of the time.
based
Right.
on what?
I mean,
Who's declaring that the BCS was correct?
if you take the 8 computers and the AP poll and the coaches poll, and the BCS, some geeks out there have continued that out. If we still have the BCS system, 95% of the time they pick the top 2 teams.
Okay.
But
Dave.
that aside, what I'm asking you,
Yes.
who would pick the top 16 teams?
Okay.
Who would pick the top 16 teams?
Dave,
How would it be?
we'll have to have
how-
a conversation sometime
how-
about the BCS because
No, I don't want to have that tonight.
okay, well, we can do that some other
how
time
would
because
the
I want
top-
to plainly explain to you how the BCS failed year after year after year. It's not going to be difficult for me to
No.
do.
No, only quibble, and I'm an Alabama fan, only quibble was the Alabama LSU rematch. That's the only quibble with the BCS system. Okay? And otherwise, I think it worked out.
It worked out.
Right. Where did it go
Nebraska.
wrong?
I'm just going to give you one example and understand that there are 10 other ones. I'm just going to give you one. This is just one. I would love to go on for the next 90 minutes just railing on the BCS, but
No.
I'll just give you one. Are you telling me
Okay.
that Nebraska in 2001, who did not win their division, who lost to Colorado and gave up 62 points their final regular season game, should have been playing in the national championship game?
When did the BCS get established?
Pardon me?
When was the BCS established? What was the first BCS championship?
1998.
No, Mark. That's not correct.
It
Not
sure is
BCS.
correct. The first BCS
No.
championship game was in 1998. Can please everybody that's watching verify this? I know that better than I know my middle name. The BCS championship game was established in 1998.
Okay.
Tennessee,
Mark,
Florida
Mark, I
State.
don't
That was the
wanna
first
get it,
one.
Mark,
And that one was wrong too.
Mark, I don't want to get in the BCS.
Okay. Okay. We'll
Argument.
go forward.
What I want to know is,
All right, Dave.
what I want to know is how would you pick the top 16 teams?
Okay. I'm going to answer that, but I'm also going to tell everyone out there for future reference, if you don't want to drag me into a BCS conversation, do not bring up the BCS. All right, Dave.
Right.
Okay. This is the way.
Okay, Mark, if you let me say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I would take the BCS over this committee because the committee has got it wrong more than the BCS. Okay, that aside, how would you pick the top 16 teams?
Oh, we're going 16?
Or 8 or 4?
Okay.
How would you pick them?
A couple weeks ago, we did a live stream and I unveiled my playoff system. Oh, you saw it. Well, you know how I'm going to select them. So,
well,
here we go, Dave.
Not the end teams. I don't know.
Okay, here we go, Dave. And me going with 8 teams and the way I'm going to select the 8 teams or the result of these selections, they're not selections actually because nobody's selecting. They select themselves. It's self-selected. Is not anything revolutionary, but the one thing that I'm doing that I'm not hearing anybody else do out there, I keep hearing people say 5 conference champions and 3 wild cards or 2 wild cards and a group of 5, but they don't go to the level to explain how you're going to select the wild cards or how they're going to be selected.
Right.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. So the first thing is we're going to decide what to do with a group of 5. And I can go either way on this. Either include them formally or exclude them. Either way.
Right. What if you had a group of 5? What if one of those you had no team that had fewer than 3 losses?
That doesn't happen.
Okay, I'm just hypothetical. Okay, that could happen.
If a group.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So let's say we've decided to include the group of 5. This is the way I would do it for an 18 playoff. The 5 conference champions make it. Okay.
Right.
All right. The best group of 5 team makes it, which means the team with the best record that won a group of 5 conference championship goes. Okay. I looked at the last 7 seasons. And 6 of those times, there was only one team that had the best record. Okay. There was one time where there was a tie. In the case of a tie, the number 1 criteria and tiebreaker is head to head. Well, most of the time, those 2 teams will not have played. So our next tiebreaker is strength of record, which is a combination of strength of schedule and dominance versus the schedule. Game control combined with strength of schedule is going to determine the team that gets selected from the group of 5. If there's a tie, if there are 2, let's say 12-1 teams, let's say Boise State goes 12-1 and Cincinnati goes 12-1.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Now we have 2 wild card teams to select out of the Power 5. We're going to select them exactly the same way. If there are 2 teams, and I wish I had all this in front of me, because I went through the entire playoff years from 2014 through 2020, those 7 seasons, to explain to everyone who would have made the playoffs. 2019 or 2020 is obviously a bad example because teams played all sorts of different numbers of games. But I would take the 2 teams that had the best record in the Power 5. And then to break the tie, it would come down to head-to-head, which actually came up a few times with Minnesota playing Penn State in 2019 and Florida playing Georgia. And then if there were no head-to-heads, it would go to strength of record.
Right. I think a simpler method would be a BCS. Take the computer rankings of the 7 or 8 computer guys, and then AP and coaches poll. Pick your 8 from that, 16 from that, 32 from that, whatever. That gives you a better reading. I mean, because they take in account everything you just said. Strength of schedule, tiebreakers, everything else. So I'll go back to that.
Dave, you're missing one.
4, you can't. If you expand it beyond 4, you can't have a committee. You can't have a willy-nilly type of selection.
There's one thing. There's one thing here, Dave, that you're missing about the BCS. The BCS wasn't a computer formula. It was 2/3 human vote. So you're just basically making it a bigger committee. The BCS was just a bigger committee.
I disagree, Mark. Coaches probably know better who a team, the number, ranking on the teams. The press. I agree with you. The press. Who knows?
You don't think the coaches have bias? You don't think the coaches have a reason to vote in or out other teams? You don't think they have self-interest involved? Coaches, number one. Number two, the coaches don't even fill out the top 25 anyway. These coaches don't fill out their top 25. They hand it to somebody else.
Coaches can't vote for their own team. And then secondly, the computers are neutral. They're neutral in terms of their ranking. I don't know why we get away from that. You got a committee, the college football playoff committee, who has more biases than those 8 computers could ever have.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying, Mark. It needs a structure. You can't.
Absolutely, it needs structure.
A structure of what the BCS offers. Where does the BCS? Okay, I won't go there yet, but we need some kind of structure. 8 computers, AP poll, coaches poll. I thought that was a good structure.
You know what the BCS produced in 2000? The BCS produced a situation in 2000 where Oklahoma won all of its games and went to the BCS championship game. Okay. And then there were 3 teams.
Okay.
There were 3 teams, Florida State, Miami, and Washington, who all had 1 loss. Okay.
Right.
Miami beat Florida State. Washington beat Miami. So if there was one team out of those 3 that did not deserve and had not earned the championship game appearance, it would be Florida State, of course, because Miami beat them and Washington beat Miami. But who do you think the BCS determined would go to the national championship game? Florida State. I could go on all night with the BCS screw-ups. It was almost every year. It was awful.
That's apples orange comparison. What if the BCS picked 4 teams? 4 teams like a committee does. I would guarantee you the BCS is a better structure than the committee. If they would have picked, say the BCS computers picked 4 teams, so you say that's a bad comparison when you pick 2 teams versus 4 teams. I mean, that's not a good comparison.
Okay. The BCS would do better.
Okay, I think we can argue for hours on this point. I appreciate your rundown, and I appreciate your very, very candid answers. And I think, though, if we have anything beyond the committee 4 pick, which I disagree with, there needs to be some system in place to pick more than 4 teams. If we pick 8 teams, I don't want a committee picking it. So maybe what you Crawford will be correct, but I don't relish a committee picking more than 4 teams.
All right, Dave. I don't want the committee selecting any teams either. We can agree on that. No committee.
Right, exactly. And my own answer, and you gave me a good answer, is how do we do it? How do we pick the teams? And you run down your answer to it. I think to get all the neutrality out is go back to a DCS-like formula. But we can agree to disagree. So,
thank you, Dave.
But I appreciate the conversation, Mark.
Absolutely.
Hey, man, congratulations on 25K. I look forward to my Alabama mask, and hopefully I can get that, and maybe only wear it a couple more months.
That's right.
Man, you got a great show. You got a super great show, man. So keep it up.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dave. I appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation. You're always welcome here. You know that. And so have a good night.
Okay, Mark. I appreciate that. Good night, sir. Good night.
All right. David's 9th topic would be support for the show. And I went to, oh boy, somebody's going to go crazy, they say. All right. Can't wait for somebody to go crazy. I don't know who this is going to be, but welcome to the Voice of College Football.
Hello?
Hello. Who's on the line?
This is Dave Knight.
Oh, it's Dave.
I'm still in a little shock from the other Dave. I had something to say, but I'm kind of dumbfounded, like they found me dumb, because I don't know what to say now.
Dave, before you start, before you start, I will just say that unfortunately we can't go back in time and have this YouTube channel during the BCS era, because I would probably have not 25,000, maybe I'd have 250,000 subscribers, or maybe I'd have 0. I don't know, because that would be like the nasty 3-letter word that I would be railing on night after night after night after night would be the BCS. But I can only go back in history now and rail on the BCS.
Yeah, I know. I guess what I was thinking is that I feel like when I look at the side chat, we got a really solid group right now, and would be really cool if we could expand on it. From the point where, we always, especially this is your livelihood now, this is your gig. We want to make this stronger and better, right? But I feel like the people in the group are really solid, a lot of good people, and every now and then you get a flyer, but for the most part, I'd say like 95% are pretty good people, really bring a lot to the show, and so that's a good thing.
I'm with you. I think I'm looking at 100% good people right now. I'm looking at 100% in the live chat right now. I think everybody's great.
Yeah.
I see a lot of good people here.
I'm just thinking, how could we, as a group, promote this? I'm posing this as a question, and maybe I think that the people in the side chat probably have a lot of good ideas that they just never have submitted to you, where they can say, hey, what do you think about this, Mark? What do you think about this, Mark? And, I'm talking about strategies of like how we can get other people on board and gather some sponsors and some support. I'm asking.
So from time to time, I will ask people to share the videos. I've tried to do that more consistently recently, and I really don't have a good gauge on people's social media presence. Like if we took everybody that's in the live chat right now, 63 people, I don't know how many people that they have following them on Twitter or they're connected to on Facebook. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like on Twitter, 12 people and 27 people and 208 people and 9 people. And so I don't know how. I just heard a fellow YouTuber make that ask of their viewership recently. And I thought, yeah, if it only makes sense to me that if people enjoy the content and they're connected with generally people that have the same interests, then if they enjoy the content, then why not connect me with other people that would enjoy the content that most likely otherwise will never have any way of finding me and most likely have no idea who I am or that we're here talking college football every day. So that's why I ask people to go out on social media and share the content.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, for me, like, I used to be on Twitter, Instagram, but at some point in time, that becomes a large effort to be on all those social medias, plus your phone and your computer constantly giving you alerts, like, at all times of the day and night, and you're like, oh, my gosh. Like you're trying to sleep, and it's like, bing, 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 and a guy, you can turn your phone off, but because of the business I do, I can't do that. But so I'm not on those so much anymore. Man, and let me ask you this, and I have a lot of friends who love football, but they seem to gravitate towards the NFL more than college versus somebody like college or somebody like both of them, like in the middle of the road 50-50 scenario. What do you, I'm asking, once again, I'm always going to pose questions to you because I don't know. I don't know what to do about that case.
I follow a stock guy that I've only been following here for maybe 6 weeks. I looked at his Patreon page. This guy started a YouTube channel. Get this. Now, when people say I've been grinding, I have been grinding. I've had a YouTube channel now for 11 years. This guy has had a YouTube channel since November, and he has 500,000 subscribers, and he has a Patreon page, and I went over there just to look, and he has 14,000 people on his Patreon page. And it's not $5 a month. It's like $50, $60, $80 a month. Now, obviously, he's telling people how to make money. And I know that if you, the key to online following is if you can tell people how to make money or how to solve a problem, then you're giving them real value there. So I understand I can't compare talking about college football versus what this guy's doing. Although he's losing people money too at the same time. He's not right all the time. And I can attest to that. But so I just thought, my goodness, I'm very appreciative of the growth that we've experienced here. But when I see somebody who started a YouTube channel in November, they've got 500,000 subscribers, they've got 14,000 people on Patreon, that's averaging like $50 per person, 14,000. Let's do the math. Is he making like 70? He's making like $70,000 a month just on Patreon. So anyway, I certainly have not broken the code on YouTube or determined how it works, because as you can see by looking at my videos, I did an Oklahoma video a few weeks ago. It's got like 11,000 views. I did 3 more that don't seem to be any less interesting last week, and they all have about 14 or 1,500 views. I've tried to pick up along the way some tricks of the trade to become more effective, but I've not broken the code here on YouTube by any stretch.
I think, like, okay, are you familiar with a guy named Coach Hayes?
Coach who? Hey?
Coach Hayes, like Hayes, like Bob Hayes.
I am not.
I first ran on, and I'll keep this brief. I first ran on to him where he was just doing recruiting analysis of individual players from all sorts of teams, right? So I find recruiting interesting. But he's a Miami supporter. He's had the Wholesome one on there, so you can ask him about him. But he was getting guys dropping $100, $50, 20, 20, 20, 20, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. I was like, wow, I don't want to imagine. I was like, wow, how do you get so many guys dropping this money on you? Well, his show is not better than yours. It's just a little different, but definitely not better.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll watch. I'll go by, let's say my son really likes one political podcast, and I'll go by there. And my goodness, he's got like 40,000 people on watching a live stream, and you just see the money just it's just flying.
Yeah. And, let me ask you one other thing. I found, because me and my way-goings of hanging out in bars, which I'll be doing with Ronan here when the COVID stuff was.
Oh boy, look out! That's going to be a sight. You and Ronan.
Me and Ronan and you.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's being a little crazy. We probably should do a live show with Ronan and I in Ireland and you.
Oh, that would be, if you guys want to do that, absolutely, I'll do that. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah, Ronan, you on that, bro?
That would be great. I send you guys a link. It's easy. If you guys are having too good a time, just give me 2 minutes and run, or you got 2 hours. Guys have all the time in the world with me. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he's well, I'm going to Africa in May, but after that, I'll be going to Ireland. That's my next stop. And he just told me, he said, you got to wait for all this stuff to lift a little bit and give us, time to marinate. And but that would be really cool. The other thing is that I think that when I reference the bars, like sometimes, like when you hand out stuff to people at bars that are free, they're like, hey, look what I got, something free. Yeah. But they may remember that I talked to you about the Voice of College Football. You may be interested. You may need to come check it out. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But I've noticed, like, when people get free stuff, they seem like happy about life.
Yeah, so we can thank our boy Bobby for supplying the free face masks. So thank you so much, Volunteer Roadshow Bobby. He supplied the free face masks. He wanted to help us celebrate 25,000. And so in addition to that will allow those people that get the face masks to get 20% off their first purchase there. And also possibly a $25 gift card.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll have that PowerPoint to you tomorrow. But there's some nice stuff on there. And it's really not that expensive. Like if I went to Fanatics and got a 1/4 zip of any college football team, it's going to cost me $75. This stuff is like $25 to $35.
Nice. And I would just like people to head over there just to check out what we've got available, which I'm going to be very transparent and honest with people about what's over there. It's not like there's going to be some amazing additional content or anything like that. It's basically, we've just built it out. So it's similar to, we're in Patreon. I'm very upfront about Patreon. I'm not delivering like 80 zillion other videos there that are exclusive. It's more about contributing to what we do here. I do go on there with exclusive live streams and my predictions and some things that you can't find here. But at this point, it's more about people saying, hey, Mark, we just want to contribute to what you do. And so check out the website, voiceofcollegefootball.com, everyone. I was glad to be able to get that that domain name.
I'm going to let somebody else get in. I hope somebody else is coming behind me. But let me say this once again to the side chat, man. God bless you guys. I know Mark appreciates you, and I'm just trying to help where I can. And I know sometimes I go off a little bit too much on the money. I apologize for that, but that quite honestly is get you, not me, because I don't have a dog in the fight other than to be helpful. But thank you guys for showing up and for being good people. And I truly mean this. I wish God to bless all of them and their families, and that everything would go well for them in these crazy times of life.
Very great, David. Thank you so much for the call. You know that your support is appreciated. And if I could come up with a better word than that, because I keep telling you that, but I think you understand.
That's all good.
Thank you so much. And again, you and Ronan, I can't get that thought out of my head of you two tearing it up.
Ronan, are you there, bro? We gonna do this.
I think he left us. He just one caller basically, he said it's like 4:30 in the morning and I can't just take it anymore. So I think Ronan did not hear us, but you'll have to let him know that he's got the invite and you guys can make your debut here at the Voice of College Football.
Yeah, definitely. I talk to him, if not every day, every other day. So it's all good. We'll figure it out, and we just gotta let the COVID stuff clear a little bit. But anyway, thank you, Mark, for taking my call, and take care of yourself, sir. And somebody else jump in there.
Cool. Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So again, I want to remind everyone that we're on Patreon. It's going to cost you 16 cents per day. 16 cents per day. It's about $5 per month. We've got exclusive live streams over there. We're going to have one tomorrow. Also, I'm going to be live talking Miami football tomorrow. So Ronan, unfortunately, couldn't hear this one, but our Canes fans, I'm going to go live tomorrow. We had some interesting content posted over there that some people didn't appreciate. And so I think it's about time for me to head on over there and handle a little controversy and handle some comments. And of course, I never hide. I find it interesting. I find it amusing every so often when somebody says, Mark, you're hiding, or, you said this and I'm hiding. I'm on here more than anybody I can ever imagine. I'm on here constantly doing call-in shows. Am I hiding from anybody? That's funny. That's like somebody, because I was being critical of Miami. Actually, I was giving Uncle Lou the platform to be critical and comical concerning Miami football. I was just laughing, and I had to respond to somebody to basically say, here's the deal. If somebody's going to come on here and rail on another football program, I'm going to allow them to do that under certain conditions. Number one, if they say something that's factually wrong, I'm going to call them out. I'm going to say that's incorrect, that's wrong. Or if they're, of course, abusive in some way, but it was all good fun. So I allowed Uncle Lou to go off on Miami because he didn't say anything that was factually incorrect. I'm always going to call people out on that. But otherwise, and it was not offensive in any way, it was just all cool fun. So one person in particular said, Mark, called me a sellout. And I'm like, do you understand what the term sellout means? Who am I selling out to? Nobody's paid for me to take a certain stance or opinion. I always love when people think that I took some kind of opinion or stance based on trying to please people. And I'm like, you really don't get me, do you? Everything I state here is my opinion, and it comes straight from my head and my heart. And I do not get swayed by anyone. And so it's comical to hear that from time to time. All right. I want to make sure I don't miss any comments in here. Otherwise, I believe, yeah, Cheryl, it is funny. Cheryl, thank you so much. Cheryl's amazing. She's in here all the time moderating the live chat. I cannot thank you enough, Cheryl, for all that you do. And I want you to take some pride and some enjoyment in 25,000 as well. This is not, you hear this from athletes from time to time, and I appreciate when they do that. When a running back gets an award and says, you know what, I can't do this without an offensive line. And I'm like, amen, thank you. The offensive line. Actually, I hate when broadcasters and analysts on the air point out that the offensive line's doing a great job, but then they never mention their names. I hate that. I probably mention more offensive line names on here. If you go through my videos, whether I'm talking about Georgia or Florida or Auburn or Ohio State, we get into the offensive line play, we're throwing out names. I love to give credit to the offensive linemen, and I love when running backs do the same thing. So I am doing the same thing basically that I was doing 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, when 12 people were watching, when 29 subscribers were watching, when 2,000 subs, and on and on and on and on. I was doing the same thing. What's the difference? You have validated me. I go back to somebody one time. I don't know how many subs I had. I might have had 50. I might have had 200, whatever it was. It wasn't many. And in some people's eyes, it still isn't many. But at the time, it might have been 50 or 75 or whatever it was. And somebody criticized one of my videos, basically said, who are you? You're a clown. You got 50 subs, blah, blah, blah. And I could tell based on what they were saying that they didn't watch the video. They basically made a judgment on me based on how many subscribers I had. And I let them know, okay, I understand you're making a judgment. So you're making an assumption. And we all do this to a certain extent, that if you come across a YouTube channel and somebody's got 200,000 subscribers and somebody else has 300 subscribers, we just assume that the person with 200,000 subscribers knows more than the person with 300 subscribers. That's probably how they got there, but certainly not always. There's a ton of exceptions to that. There are idiots with 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, and there are very intelligent, valuable thoughts out there coming from people that have 100 subscribers on YouTube that are amazing. So all I did was ask this person, I said, just watch the video, because I can tell you didn't watch the video. You're calling me out, calling me a clown, calling me a moron because I got 50 subscribers. Watch the video. He watched the video, and then he was like, you know what? You're right. You had a lot of good things to say. You know what you're talking about. I just saw that you had 50 subs and thought this guy's a moron. He's a clown. No, let's not be making judgments on people and evaluations based on what they look like or how many people are watching the videos. And again, I'm not saying I don't do the same thing, but I tend to believe that, okay, this video's got 100,000 views. This video's got 75 views. Well, this one must be better. Not necessarily. Appreciate all the comments, of course, coming in here. Our man 28AD28. So here's a long time viewer right here, Oklahoma fan, as you can see, who is paying homage to the great Adrian Peterson. Congratulations, Mark, upward and onward. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that so much. I've had a ton of great conversations with 28AD28. Has called in forever. I would love to be able to look all of you up and see what number of subscriber you are. So I said this at one point, and if you missed it, I went through, and you can go down the list as a YouTuber, and you guys have YouTube accounts. You can do this. You can see this. and see how many people subscribe to you and on what date, in what order. And then you just reverse the list and you can see your very first subscriber. Well, my very first subscriber was Phoenix 462. Phoenix 462, my very first subscriber that is still a subscriber. I have no idea who this person is. I've never seen them comment. Maybe they never watch a video. Who knows? But they subscribed in May of 2010, and they are still a subscriber. That is my first subscriber, Phoenix 462. And then the first subscriber I could find that is still active, that still participates and leaves comments would be Leon Hurricanes at 458. That was the first one I could find. And then Eric Birch at 459, Brendan O'Leary at 470, and Steve Levy, not that Steve Levy, at number 473 were the first ones that I could find that I still see that are active. But I would love to be able to look all of you up. I wish I could type in Mr. TW and it would come up number 21,409. That would be cool. But again, as I mentioned at one point during the conversation tonight, it took hang on just a second. It took about 7.5 years to get to 5,000 subs. Then it took about another 8 months to get the other 5,000 to 10,000. So we are accelerating. Cheryl, thank you so much for reminding everyone that we're going to be on with Pigskin Pete. So not to confuse anyone, but we just do this to share the wealth. The first 12 shows were on his show, on his channel. The next 12 shows were on my channel. We've hit 24, so show number 25 back on Pigskin Pete's channel Monday at noon Eastern Time. voiceofcollegefootball.com. voiceofcollegefootball.com. Please check it out. You get a free face mask with your favorite team design, okay? Branded right there. And then you get 20% off your first purchase once you get the face mask. So please register there. So please keep that in mind. Again, voiceofcollegefootball.com. So I have needed a website for a long time, and because of Volunteer Roadshow Bobby, he has been gracious enough to do that for me. All I do is basically talk to his web design guy, Dennis, and say, can you do this, this, and that? Boom, it happens. It's phenomenal. So much thanks to Bobby from Volunteer Roadshow. We had contributions come in tonight from Miami Flow, Phil B., BGPO Football Funk, DeAndre, and Mr. TW with 2 contributions tonight. Thank you so much for that. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. We're pushing midnight. We've been on for almost 3 hours. Maybe for 50,000, we'll have just this phenomenal blowout. Maybe I'll start to get out there. We made the trip to Orlando to start the 2019 college football season to check out the Miami-Florida game. Many of you remember that. We went down there. We went around the city before the game. We talked to fans. We pushed out a ton of great video. It was phenomenal. We were hosted down there by Zoe1219, and it was a great time. So I would love to do a lot of that in the future. You guys know what the deal is on Saturdays. I get invited to a lot of games to say, hey, Mark, why don't you come out to the Penn State-Michigan game? And I think, oh, first of all, it's really not affordable at this point. Number 2, that kind of locks me down to one game, where you guys know what I do all day Saturday. I watch all the games, as many as I possibly can, so we can talk it up right here. But I'm kind of eyeing those Thursday and Friday games. Last year, I had a Boston College game on a Thursday or Friday that I was eyeing to be able to get to get out there and give it a different slice here. Am I streaming live on Monday? So here's the deal, Jeremiah. On Monday, we'll be on Pigskin Pete's channel at noon Eastern Time, but I'll be here at 6 6 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. And I'll be over on the Miami channel at 3 o'clock tomorrow. 3 o'clock tomorrow. The notification will be going out soon. All right, everyone. I hope I'm not missing anything big. Oh, we're glad to see Eddie could jump on here at the tail end. Eddie, thank you so much. Man, this guy's here constantly during especially the Miami call-in shows and has been supporting for a long, long time. So, Eddie, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. There is no way I can name everybody who means something to this show. Unfortunately, Navy Thomas couldn't be here. And NCIS Fanatic 21, who I believe are the two longest standing, most ardent supporters in regards to length of time. But I want to acknowledge Eddie again. The Rod Farva is always here for us. Dependent Fanatic, Michael Hogue, Cheryl, of course. I already talked about Cheryl. Lewis, thank you so much for being here tonight. David Knight, of course. Dave, who called me about the college football playoff. James Thompson. I have never seen this name before. And since it is a 25,000 sub celebration tonight, I haven't done this yet tonight. So this is kind of a throwback move right here. James Thompson, this is the first time I've seen your handle on the channel. Therefore, welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Would love to know who you root for and how long you've been watching. James, good to see you. And yes, I was given an invite to the Slop Olympics, but it's quite a ways away, and hopefully we'll make that happen next year. Hopefully. I don't see anything else in here, but again, a ton of people that are amazing. Jeremiah Thomas, great to see you. D-Rock Irish, thank you so much for the support that you give. David Greenshield, of course, and others. Again, I don't want to miss anyone, and I'm missing a zillion people. Bam. Well, we're going to finish with that comment by Dependent Fanatic. That is the comment we are going to close with. And there it is. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to be back tomorrow on the Miami channel at 3 p.m. Eastern time to answer your comments there that have been posted to the channel in recent days. And we'll be back here at 6 o'clock Eastern on Monday. Thank you so much. Let's celebrate 50,000 soon, and we will see you. Your requests, your recommendations, your comments, all are always welcome. You can hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. And one more time, you get a face mask if you go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. I'm going to post something on the front page of the channel. I'll get it out there. The Voice of College voiceofcollegefootball.com, voiceofcollegefootball.com, and you go to register for free. You get a free mask. You get 20%. I've been talking too long, 3 hours, 20% off the first item you purchase, and you get thrown into the drawing for a $25 gift card. So check it out there. Awesome. And you don't have to buy anything to be thrown in for the gift card offering. So let me make that clear. You get the free face mask, free shipping as well, free face mask. You do receive 20% off a first purchase if you so choose, but you don't have to. And you're still eligible with the free mask to get the $25 gift card, to make that clear. You guys are amazing. You know it. Don't expect the suit jacket next time, or maybe I'll make it a statement. I don't know. And a staple. Who knows? But we will see you soon. Thank you so much. George is here right at the tail end. Glad you could make it. Great to see you, George. It is appropriate and just makes sense that you would be here for 25,000, George. So great to see you. There we go.